Hello, I'm Tom Terry. I'm currently serving as the president of the Ocean Pines Association Board. I'm in my second year, my first term on the board, and I look forward to working with my fellow board members to continue the forward movement of our community.
Hi, I'm Pete Gomsak, and I'm currently treasurer of the board, and I'm beginning the third year of my first term on the board.
Hello, I'm Bill Wentworth. I'm a newly elected board member. I've been selected by my peers to serve as a vice president, and I'm looking forward to working with the OPA management team.
I'm Terry Moore, newly elected to the Board of Directors and looking forward to working with everyone.
I'm Dave Stevens. I'm currently serving my fifth term on the Board of Directors.
I'm Dan Stikursky. I'm starting the beginning of my third term on the Board of Directors and serving as secretary for the board.
Ray Unger, in my second term on the board.
Pledge allegiance.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. No, wherever you see, don't bring up
We can arrange that. Tom will be up there.
Corrections, but let's approve the minutes as they are.
Put you two in a timeout here in a minute.
Gentlemen.
Uh-oh.
Go.
Sorry.
You better separate those two.
Sorry. Private meeting
Put you
down
two in
here.
a timeout. You have an announcement about some video.
Just so everyone's aware of the fact, we have a couple cameras. I know Joe is recording as well, but we do have a couple cameras, so we are streaming this live via the net. We tried it with our town hall meeting at work. We're now doing it via these cameras. Dave's in the corner setting it up, and we'll stream it today on the net, and then obviously it'll get posted right away. So just so everyone knows what's going on with the cameras.
Okay. Approval of the agenda. We have 2 sets of minutes to approve. Remarks from me, Aquatics Committee, Jenny, report, General Manager's report, public comment, media questions, old business, which is the guidance to the General Manager on the upcoming budget, new business, pending action list, advisory committee, appointments, CPI violations, and adjournment. Do have any additions or changes to the agenda?
Yes, Tom, the item on the agenda is discussion item, old business, and I intend to make a motion on that. And the motion will simply say to approve the board guidance. But trying to conform with protocol, I have put those words into a piece of paper that simply says, I move that the OPA board approve the attached budget guidance to the general manager of fiscal 2013. We've handled it this way the last 2 years. It's been up there for a discussion item in one instance. It was there as new business on another. So, but the intent has always been to offer a motion to accept that. So I will pass these around. It's a very simple one-pager. It says, I move we approve the adoption attached.
Any objections to the change in the agenda?
Clarification.
Okay, moving on. August 10th, special meeting minutes.
Move to approve.
I'll second that, but with an offer of comment. With this set of minutes, as another set of minutes, that's what Dan and I were doing over there. There's some minor things that need to be done to them, nothing of substance, but I'll pass this on to Dan. So I second the approval of the minutes with the understanding that we'll clean this up a little bit.
Any other comment? Follow question? Approve the minutes? Aye.
Aye.
September 20th, regular meeting.
I'll move adoption with the same understanding.
Second.
Any objection? Approved.
Okay.
My remarks are focused in on 2 things coming up. We have the Executive Council coming up, which is all the heads of the various advisory committees meeting next week. And just a reminder to our board members that the yearly reports are due from the various advisory committees, and that we are instituting the charging document process this year. Just to remind folks that we need to keep moving forward on getting those documents drafted so that we can take action on them in November. Just a reminder from me on that. That's really the only remarks I had, just to remind folks of those activities. And at that, we will move to the Aquatics Committee. Do we have a chair?
We have a chair. I mean, there is one here.
We have a chair, we have a chair.
I want to make sure you didn't have to stand up.
put the chair
unless you
in the
want to.
chair.
That's all right, I can pace.
There you go.
All right, the Aquatics Committee report is already on the website, so everyone has had a chance to read and review that. This is just a review of that and any updates that might have occurred since that went in. Our committee was founded in March 2009, courtesy of John McLaughlin and the board. And so we are a relatively new committee, for which Terry Moore was quite grateful when she received the past information on it. We had a new aquatics director that year, Sarah Ziccarelli, and a new contract for teaching swim lessons. We had a charge from the management to develop programs and attendance at Sports Corps. So we developed the early bird swim, which Sarah did, senior sharks, Stephen Decatur swim team came in, OPST swim team went year-round, or started with a year-round plan, and there was a growth in number and attendance at the classes. In 2008, the usage of the pool at Sports Corps was very minimal, and when we came on the board as a committee, we were asked to see what we could do to pick up attendance, because very few people were coming, particularly in the summer. It was vacant, literally. So that's what we started with. In 2010, we achieved independent status as an amenity, so the aquatics is a separate amenity, and we have a new aquatics director as of November 1910. One of the biggest things we've done that is important to everybody is we've set up a statistics approach to attendance at the pool. So now we can tell you who's in the pool, when they're in, what they're doing in there. And that's very accurate based on the coverage by the lifeguards early in the morning before the pool attendants get there, and the pool attendants for the rest of the day. So I can give you information on that. That was started in November 2010, when I all of a sudden saw the Stephen Decatur swim team come in and note that our statistics rose to about 1,000 a week in that period of time. So I thought, we need to keep track of this. So we've done that, and so from the first year, as we go through this year, we'll have a complete record of who's in the pool and why and when. Now, this summer was an extremely bountiful year for pool attendance, thanks to Mother Nature mostly. But at any rate, our figures for the summer were off the charts, and the July totals for the Sports Corps were 5,714 in that month alone, and that was our biggest month. August was not as good because we had the pool closure for drainage and a few incidents. So that's the important thing. Now, what I do want to say is the maturity of the tracking system is by swipe and hand counts. The total for the summer that our general manager revealed was 76,000 attendance at the pools all summer, which is pretty darn good. This is all the figures are going to be entered into the computer in the future so that we can track it through there. Part of it comes from the computer, from the swipe cards and things like that. Ours are hand entered because we do hand counting, but we can get them into the computer through RecWare, and then it will all eventually come together. We had a very slow start to fall attendance, but now we're up over 100 a day, except for Friday, which is still working on getting up to 100. They were 99 this week, 95 the week before. And we have a new board liaison, of course, Terry Moore. We signed a provider agreement with Red Cross in May of 2011. And that allowed us to teach Red Cross courses, use their materials, report our training to them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That was very important because Red Cross has since then sort of abandoned the local chapters and moved everything into a central position in Baltimore. So all the paperwork will be coordinated in Baltimore. All of the instructor records will be coordinated. And if you want materials, you have a national website that you can order materials for. So it's quite different from local supply. And I was trying to track this 2 weeks ago, and I finally got a phone number in Baltimore. I called them. They knew of the chapter. They didn't know of our provider agreement. They had no copy of that. They had no records on our instructors who were teaching for us. So I sent them everything we had, and we are now officially in business again with Red Cross. Thank God. So, and that is important because we train lifeguards, and we also hope to train WSIs in the near future.
What is WSI?
Water safety instructors. They are
Thank
the
you.
people who teach swim lessons. So we had many requests for committee input this year by the general manager, who attended a number of our meetings and laid out his plans for us to get our response to it. So I would say that we've been well consulted. We had suggested 2 years ago that we study solar as an aspect of reducing utility costs at Sports Corps. And the Environmental Committee took up that charge and has done a very, very well-researched report. We aren't quite sure where we're going to put modules yet, but at least we know that we can. We've done the use, we did a study on the use of ultraviolet as an addendum to pool disinfectants, which I've operated in. All pools and deck areas are now non-smoking, which is another major step forward. Sports Corps rehab is in process with our suggestions. It hasn't gone any further than that I know of, but at some point in time, I would hope that the committee gets an invitation to discuss with the 5-year planning committee and see what mutual thoughts are. I also invite the board to make an appointment with Tom Harry and myself to come and tour the Sports Corps pool. Some of you have been there. Some of you had a hand in its development. Some of you probably have never been there. So please come and see what we're doing. And if you have questions about what our rehab plan is, and as far as I know it, we'll be happy to point out the things that need to be done and why. So make a meeting with us. Now, the other issue of that is the timing of the rehab, if it is adjudged to be this year, as we have been presently thinking about it. It is a project that may take most of the summer, and if it is going to be the summer of 2012, we will be minus a pool for that period of time. And that's another thing to put into your planning situation. And our major issues are energy consumption, pricing for membership in classes. That is the project we're working on for this next meeting. And we'll hope to be able to submit a report to the general manager and the board at that time. Storage and safeguarding of files, pool rehab, advanced lifeguard and WSI training, continued growth and development, and down the line, 5, 10, 15 years, who knows, eventual need for a new facility which would be state-of-the-art. And that's not something that Ocean Pines will be paying all for. That's something we'll raise big money for. Okay, are there any questions?
First of all,
Virginia, thank you for attending this morning. Couple questions. Do you have a feel for what the utility costs presently are? And as part of that, with the look, as you're looking into various other ways to provide energy sources at the pool, what kind of reduction in cost do you see that being, or do you have a feel for that?
We have the specifics of the energy cost. Art Carmine can give them to you in a heartbeat, right? But those are things that we are been working along on. The Public Works put in Renai tankless water heaters for the showers. Presumably that has reduced costs. We are considering, when we dig up the deck, to put PEX tubing in the deck, which would then offer us a warmer deck surrounding the pool, which would keep the pool water warmer, but it would also not cause evaporation, which is what our dehumidification system is working on all the time to take away. There are some issues, I think, the Environmental Committee ran into these with Carl Johnson's report in the evaporation situation. And just about 2 weeks ago, maybe 3, Structures Unlimited came down to do their annual servicing on the building. They were very impressed with how the building has held up, but they did have the suggestion that we could close down the dehumidification for the summer. We'd let the bags go flat, so we would also be closing off the big Anon dehumidifier, and you would be working with open doors, roof, and fresh air, maybe some fans and things like that flowing through. So that should save some energy too. We've been running it year-round because we were advised to do that through Public Works.
Have we had any of these solar or other alternative energy companies give us a projection on, if we went to their source, what kind of reduction in cost it would be?
We have had one quote from Eastern Shore Hot Water, and that was $40,000 to put the panels on top of the roof of the building, which may not be possible, and a projection of in 9 months we would be relatively self-sufficient. We're not quite sure we believe those.
But that's what the experts are telling us.
Yes, right.
That's one expert.
One expert.
One expert, right.
One
He
expert
has.
who's trying to sell you solar panels.
Yes, that's right.
Make sure we're clear.
Flexera is the group around here that is doing the most with the panels, and they're doing the one up in Salisbury with the company there, and they're talking with other people and other places. There's a great deal of research going on. Warwick Tech is involved in it. My son teaches for the Wartech High School, and they're doing energy studies too, and they're already the largest user of geothermal in the area when they built that new building. And my son has a grant to build a wind turbine, and I've put him in touch with Dave Blazer. So, it all comes together, so you know.
Yeah, Bill,
there's
I
a
know
way to
you've
go.
inquired in the past about geothermal. I'm wondering whether that's been looked at. As I recall, that was looked at the original time of the original pool cover, right? Geothermal?
Yes.
And Dan, you were involved in that, I think.
Exorbitantly
That's
expensive
what I
to
thought.
install.
Right.
The capital recovery on that
The payback was very, very long.
it was actually a little bit longer than the projected life of the building itself, so. Didn't make a
So
lot
a
of sense.
decision was made not to incur that
Exactly,
expense.
right. Now, that
But it has
may-
been looked at. I think some people have asked, has it ever been looked at? And the answer is
Yes,
yes, it
that
has
was
been.
part of the
Yeah,
original
It
plan.
has. I think it's time for a new look in a sense of all of these things. Solar, if it could be conveniently placed, would be definitely good. And the PEX tubing would then carry the solar hot water through the floor too. There are advantages and disadvantages to both. The money is that we got from the would get from the government is only due for solar, electric PV, photovoltaic solar, not hot water solar. But those things all have to be looked at, and everything has to be prepared. If we are going to dig up the deck at Swim and Rack at Sports Corps, we would definitely put in the PEX tubing, just as they have done in this building. So when we're ready, we've got access. So,
Another thing to be careful of on those energy estimates or proposals that come from these folks, a lot of them build in the energy exchange, government exchange credits.
the
And
SRECs,
if you
yes.
don't know what you're doing with those, you can end up losing all kinds of money or leaving money on the table or paying somebody an exorbitant fee to manage that for you and end up netting nothing, but the suppliers will give you as if you had paid nothing to manage that, so you get all the credit. Just a side comment that.
Well, I think it needs very much further study.
Oh, it
And
does.
we are babes
Yeah.
in the wood when we come to do this kind of thing. So we need good guidance and reliable guidance.
Right.
And you don't know whether you got that or not.
Jenny, I have a question. How is the Stephen Decatur High School team, we have an arrangement with them, and
Yes, they rent
what
the pool.
percentage, and I know you don't have accurate information, but what's your guess as to the percentage of usage that's caused by that? I know you're trying to
Right, they...
commingle regular swimmers and team swims, and how's that going?
That's going quite well. They have rented 5 lanes from us.
Okay.
And there's one lap lane, and every once in a while, a brave soul gets in there and does a lot with the turbulence and swims. But most people look at the schedule. We now have schedules, and they're up there, and they tell you who's in the pool at what time. And when we can get them distributed as a little hand thing that we can hand out, then that'll help people a lot. But the very faithful lap swimmers check. They're not going to waste their time. Okay? So that's basically what happens. Everybody knows that they're in the pool for 3 months and they use up 5 lanes.
And they've got a contract with us to pay us X number of dollars per lane and that sort of thing.
Right.
We directors in the past have gotten emails from time to time about disgruntled
Oh, yes.
Swimmers.
We always get emails very quickly from disgruntled people who haven't checked, who have assumed that 2 lanes are available to them at any time of the day or night.
whenever they choose, right?
We've got plenty of time at night. I mean, the pool is appropriately from 8 to 10, so we'll try to see if they would like to swim then.
With respect to lifeguard training, Jenny, you noted in your report advanced lifeguard training, which I'm assuming that we're certified to do.
No, it's all lifeguarding is the standard now, and what I was saying, advanced lifeguard training used to be called a basic and an advanced, but it's all one
And
certification.
who does that at this point in time in this area?
Well, we do. I am, the certified instructors that we use are Nora Mears, who's the aquatic director of the Y, and Nancy Johnson Holland, who is a former aquatics director of Ocean Times, who is currently pursuing her paramedic certifications and has taught for us for years. And she is the one whom we choose to use when we can do it. And she is the one who will be a water safety instructor trainer, hopefully by this spring, so that we can then offer WSI classes. So, you know, if you're going to offer teaching, offer a program pool, you offer it from taking care of infants right on up to senior citizens. And they include all of the registered lesson programs in the county, in the area, and nationally. And we've chosen to go with Red Cross, and because they're nationally recognized. And we just ran into this little glitch of not knowing who we were and having the right documentation, which hopefully that has been taken care of. But, so our programs are complete. We teach 7 different water exercise classes at different times of the day.
No, I'm aware of the programming area. I'm just interested a bit in the lifeguard side, because we're not the only area that has pools that uses certified lifeguards, and I just wonder if there's the potential for becoming the area school for that.
That's the
goal.
intention. That's the
goal.
intention.
That's the goal, and that's been the goal all along.
Especially since the Lower Shore Red Cross is not offering it
Right.
any longer. Yeah, that's what
So we may have another income center there,
Correct.
albeit maybe small, but it should pay for itself,
Well,
or maybe
yeah,
contribute a little bit.
it already is paying for itself. and
Yeah, it's-
we're not making massive amounts of money, and they have raised their costs, and I don't know how much we will have to raise ours to keep ahead of that.
Well, it leads to another question. The Ocean City has a very stringent application criteria for beach lifeguards. One requirement of which is that you must be a Red Cross certified lifeguard. It used to be advanced lifeguard, now it's just lifeguard.
Yeah.
But it'd be interesting to talk to them about, could we become part of their training program or their
We
training
already
school?
are.
We are? Their training school?
Our aquatic director is a former beach patrolman.
Okay.
And we have, right now, to this morning, we will have the Ocean Pines Volunteer Department, Fire Department rescue swimmers in the pool, finishing their training.
So really what we probably need to do next, since it's all set and it's already involving a lot of these groups, is just come up with some small marketing plan so that the whole area can,
We're already doing a lot of this.
and they are doing a lot of it.
And
But-
we're actively going after this business. It was
Right.
part of the plan last year.
Right.
They're talking intelligently about, because we are pursuing it. Tom Perry is the one that those questions really, he's the one running that programming. But I mean, we're doing.
I'm just asking
Oh,
because
no, they're
I
great
don't know.
questions. Yeah,
so-
no, they're great questions, but we are pursuing those.
And also, I am aware of the fact that one of the instructors that teaches classes is a sergeant in Ocean City Beach Patrol.
Yeah, Colby Kaufman teaches our water exercise.
Well, there
classes.
are several offshoots of our program here that might have potential elsewhere. Example, we clean and maintain, 5 pools? So we have a staff of people who
Actually,
understand how to
6.
do that. 6 pools,
The park.
the park.
We have a contract
So
with
we
the
have a
park.
contract with the park to do it. Do we have any time available in the staff of people who do the pool cleaning to
It
go
was
elsewhere?
actually brought forward last year, Dan, as
There we go.
as an idea for a new revenue
Yeah.
stream. It's on the back burner to be more thoroughly thought through,
Okay.
and we made a decision last year not to step outside the boundaries of Ocean Pines, but that was last year's decision, but it's a good question. Again, that's another reason that I asked the advisory chairpersons to come talk to us, because we get these kinds of questions and we find out there's all kinds of good stuff going on.
Well, and as this branches out, the teaching branches out, then that may
And that
come up
might
again.
follow
Correct.
very well.
Well, our whole approach all along is to be it's funny, I got a response back from the people, the Red Cross people in Baltimore, and they said, since you want to be a center of excellence, yay, man. So that's where we have always been aiming, is to be a center of excellence. Let's face it, folks, we're the only game in town. We have the facility.
Right.
There are very few indoor pools. I mean, there are plenty of indoor pools. They're all kind of small.
Yeah.
Even Sea Colony, who has 2 indoor pools, they can train their swim team, but it's not as big a pool as Sports Corp, actually.
As far as the numbers go, of people attending, I realize that, to my knowledge, this is the first time we've really tried to track how many people were actually using the pools, and it
Right.
may not be a correct statement, but I believe
Yes.
that may be the case. So we now have kind of a benchmark
Right,
going
exactly.
forward year after year to look at.
Exactly.
But with that being said, understanding that we didn't have any real numbers before, what is your gut tell you of what does 76,000 people, what does that relate to from, what do you think the growth is, if any, over previous years? You've got a lot of
Okay, well,
experience around it.
let me say a couple things there. First of all, Sarah did a report in 2009 after the summer.
Okay.
And she was using the original swipe stuff that we had, which was often not functional, and she was using the cash register receipts. It took her 2 months to do it. And she came up with a figure of 15,000 for the season of all 5 pools. Okay. We knew that would be short of what was actually there. The next summer was 2010, And of course, that was a very hot summer. Mother Nature was kind to us. I took a sample reading in August with better figures and came up with 35,000. And no further adjustment of those figures was required or done at that point. Now, this year, Bob's figure is from the new Investment Pool Swipe system, which on cards, and the other stats all together is 76,000, which I consider to be fantastic, and not necessarily reflecting as much growth, just reflecting better ways to keep the material. And all of that can be wiped away in an instant if you have a cold summer, or if you have a hurricane in the middle of it, as we did, which was fortunately kind to us, but it still took a number of days out of the system. How many days of fecal incidents do you have? How many thunderstorms do you have? How many of all those things, when you're doing outdoor pools and indoor pools, those all affect it. So we're definitely on the roll upward. And now that we can track it better, I think we'll be very accurate with it. But we've not had a nasty summer, and we certainly could have that.
Any other questions?
Yes, Dave?
Yeah, Ginny, does your committee look at, discuss, track the financials for aquatics?
We do not particularly. That is, of course, the job of the aquatics director to do that. We have noted some things. I look at it because I was the manager for 2010. So I did learn how to look at the budget then. And, there are certain differences this year. But we have a relatively new aquatic director who went through his trial by fire this summer and learned a lot of things, and is already working on next summer. So
I guess I wondered whether you had any, we get the financials and anybody can. They're posted on the website. So for an example, this month, we had $30,000 in revenues, and we had $73,000 in expenses, $42,000 loss, and one would expect that kind of thing, since we're past all the heat has gone away.
That should not be a big issue.
That should not be a big issue, do you feel?
Well, no, it should be an issue, yes, but it should not have been. We lost a lot of guards over the summer, and I know if that puts us into overtime on the ones we've got. I'm not tracking that. I was told at the very beginning that my role was the committee and not operations. So I've been listening to that.
Okay. That answers my question. You're not tracking it.
But does that revenue that you quoted, does that include membership fees, or is that just people who bought passes?
Net operations.
Net operations. So
That's what I'm talking about. I'm saying the revenue, if you're looking at the revenue versus the expenses, net operations is minus 42,000 for just 1 month. And if you look at it for the year, compared to year-to-date, our net operations actual year-to-date, despite a very hot summer, and as you say, gazillions of people, are about $40,000 compared to $70,000 at the same point last year. And I guess the issue is pretty clearly, you can look at the expenses. The issue is in the expenses. But I'm not asking the right person.
I am not the person.
Tom would be the better
following.
person to.
Tom
Or
Perry.
this guy, the general manager.
Mr. Manager.
To answer, though, Bill's question, the answer is member dues is definitely included in there. It's the largest single revenue source. It's $264,000 year-to-date actual within the aquatics P&L.
Yeah, when I did look
And it's
at
over budget, by the way, $14,000.
Thank you. I have looked at our income rising very nicely this summer. And
Expenses are also.
Well, but expenses are.
We know that. But that's not your role, and we understand that.
Yeah.
Thank you, and you and your committee and everybody who serves. And Terry, I know that you're working hard with them at this point. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate
Thank you.
your interest, and do come and make a date with us so we can show you the pool and let you know exactly why we're doing things and what we think about it. Okay?
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
I'll be in time for my class.
Class of 10.
Mr. Thompson?
Mr. President, what happened to the mics? You can hear what you people say. Normally we got mics when you speak here. It's hard to hear that lady talk.
We didn't set them up. Sorry, Dutch. I'll make sure we do that next one.
Inviting them, of course, to the front.
Just a question.
Yeah.
Bill, you want to repeat that?
Maybe if we had plenty of seats here in the front, and if anyone who's having difficulty hearing, maybe I would invite you to get closer to the front.
It's a big distance, you know.
It's like church, you
That's all
know?
I have to say.
I'll stand so you can hear me, Dutch. All right, good morning. Last month, I was asked several different questions. I'm trying to make sure I covered them all in this month's manager's report for everybody.
Is there, excuse me, Bob, is there a hard
Oh,
copy?
okay, I'm sorry. Thank you. Okay, one big thing. One big thing that's a real plus right now, we finally finalized the agreement with the fire department, all said and done. Last month, we reported that we were real close to this. Perfect, thank you. No, leave that one on, so there you go. That's all signed and wrapped up now, so that's been in the works for a long time, as folks know, so we're real excited that that's finally wrapped up. Dog Park, I was asked to just give a quick brief. A couple of things have come up, and Mr. Leveling is here today, is extremely passionate about it. One thing that's come up is over the last month, a lot of questions about the cost. Remember, we had estimated approximately $30,000, and the committee was going to raise half of that. So I just wanted to give you all an idea, just for those that may not know. Here's where we pulled up a number of dog parks that have been built, and specifically the last 4 in Maryland. You'll notice the cost to do those. Now, I'm not going to tell you that ours is of the size of the 271 in San Juan or the Leesburg one at 170, but just giving you some ideas of how much it costs to build a dog park. So our 30, I thought, was a really fairly modest investment, of which I'm very excited. As of this past weekend's event, I believe you're up to about $10,000. Is that correct?
Yep.
Ken? So that's a lot of money raised so far, so we're real excited about. So we're 2/3 of the way there. Any questions about that?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Because the fundraising is going so well, and we'll be quickly approaching the 15 arbitrary number, what I would like to do is either sit down with you or somebody and with Jack to see how we can move this thing along a little bit. I don't know what any holdups are going to be with permits or anything else, but everybody's talking about next spring and everything to get it on board, which might be possible to do. But if we're looking at the organization coming up with half and we coming up with half, it's not a big dollar. You know, that's not a big thing that we should be able to keep brushing aside and putting aside. So I'm just going to stay on top of it.
Okay.
Yeah, just one clarification. The 15 is not arbitrary. The 15 is the 15. That is the number that is in the minutes of our meeting and what our motion called for, and you're well on your way to doing it. Just wanted to make sure we were clear that that's not an arbitrary number. That is the number. Okay?
The total 30 was
Yeah.
arbitrary.
Let me just comment here.
That's true.
The motion that we approved was contingent upon meeting certain things, and one of them was the fundraising, obviously, but it's not 50%. It's 50% or $15,000, whichever is good. And the point of that was so that we didn't get into this back and forth about, oh, we can cut this, we can do that. The fact of the matter is, it's $15,000, and we're 2/3 of the way towards that, and I think that's very good. Jack and I have talked even more recently about that, and so, but it's 15,000. It was not arbitrary, as Tom said.
Pete, the other nice thing about that $15,000 is that happens to be within the general manager's approval and
Right,
spending
yes.
capacity,
Right.
so the board need not get involved
Well,
again beyond
no,
that.
I beg to differ with you. That's
I beg- I
15,000
beg
of
really to differ
30,000. The
with you.
project is a $30,000 project.
Oh, okay.
$30,000 project.
$30,000 project.
Which exceeds by double the
Yeah.
15,000 threshold for board approval. Okay, so the 15 is just the portion that's coming from the voluntary contributions.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess, looking at these numbers kind of reflects the concern that I've had all along. We're 30,000 and there's not a number on there that, I guess one of them comes close. Also, we have in previous discussion addressed things like what are the needs of the dog park. We don't have an operations plan yet for it. And we, for example, the idea of water. The fact that dogs need, and we have to put those in as part of the expense. I guess my concern, in a nutshell, is that, are we building something that's way low from what's required? What's the difference between, for an example, now maybe they have bells and whistles and maybe it's a function of size. Maybe it's don't say there you go. That this project is not being perhaps done as well as it needs to be.
Based on what?
I beg to differ.
Based on what?
I'm concerned, Bob.
I got you. but
Concerned.
Here's what I tell you. I brought it, this was just an update, guys. Now read the debate. If we want to, we can do it every month. But truth of the matter is, I was just giving an update. I'm excited where Jack and his team are. Fact of the matter is, we did a price sheet. We talked with one fence company. When we go to do it, we'll get multiple bids, as we always do. We got the preliminary amounts there. When I presented this to the board, I actually had a breakdown of all the costs. I feel very, very comfortable that they're accurate costs. And with that being said, if you talk to Mr. Leverling, he'll tell you 30 is too high.
Right.
So it could go either way. The other thing that I did recommend and suggest, the way that we have it mapped out down at Mampin Creek was, if you remember this, we were going with something somewhat smaller with the ability to open it up and expand it later to start and see how it would work. So, Mr. Stevens, I think you are correct in the fact that we are a little lower than some of these others, but we took that into consideration going into it. Again, we didn't have to buy the property, and no, we did not do research to find out all the details of all of these, but we did take into consideration keeping it somewhat modest, but still give enough space to use to get started.
All right, as we work through these projects that are going to take more time than a month, we're going to have information like this brought to us that is at this level, reasonable question. If everybody else is spending this kind of money, how can we get away with only spending 30? Perfectly legitimate question. When we get the full business plan, all of that, I'm assuming, will be answered at that point. Like I said, I don't want to re-debate this again, but I think it's legitimate that, as we get these updates, take it as an update, reasonable question, and let, one more comment, then we'll move on. Go ahead, Pete.
I think the only reason this is here is because there's been some in the community who've said 30,000 is way too much
Way too
cost.
much,
We can do it
right.
for much cheaper.
Right.
And I think Bob did a basic research to say,
Right.
wait a minute. So
Yeah.
no need to debate it.
I'm actually in the...
I think it's in good hands in Bob.
And now when we get, just so you all know, we have some folks in the committee, Jack Leverling, Mr. George Alston, who was a dog trainer for many, many years. We've had folks come out, we've identified, I have them in the folder. When we get to the point where we actually start to get a little more structure with this, we'll pull them in and we'll do it.
Okay.
And since they're at 10,000, we're going to start thinking about that.
Well, we are, yeah.
I mean, I'm saying the same thing Ray said.
If
We're at
someone wants
10,
to take over the project, guys, you're welcome to. The fact that I'm bringing it up means it's
No.
on the
Let's leave it
radar.
with the general
Right,
manager to
right,
continue to
right.
pursue it.
Right.
Yeah, it
Okay.
is. But no, it's a good point. We're
I know
working
you're
on it.
working
Okay,
on it.
yeah.
You know,
Okay.
we talked.
Yeah.
Okay, roads plan, that was something that was brought up last month. I wanted, you guys were asking where we are with the roads plan. So I have literature to... All right, let's start with last year's...
That's what happens when you ask.
A lot
Yeah.
of trees.
Well, not all this is complete distribution. I'm going to circulate this. This was the, and we didn't make copies of this one. That was the last evaluation that was done. It was done in 2007. Okay, from that evaluation, okay, we created a work plan. these are for you to keep.
Okay.
Okay? From the work plan.
Hey, Pete, can I have one?
Start with yours there.
Take mine.
We developed here's another copy. This one is the current, I've given you two. The spreadsheet, and Mr. Stevens has the one in his hand I'm referring to. It looks like this. This particular plan was one that Kerry had shared with me. We went over in detail where we were. Eddie went back, Eddie Wells, and took another look at it and put it a little different format that may be a little easier for everyone to understand exactly where we are. Okay? And then as the work got accomplished, each phase had, each year when a phase was to be developed, I'll be happy to pass this around as well, we went with an engineer, in this case it was Mr. Soule, and they did a plan for us for that year's work, and I'll pass that out. So that's the sort of the history and the information that's available. Now, what does that mean for us today?
Before you go into
Yes.
today, just on the report that you handed around for us to look at,
Yes.
the rating system is what? 10 is great.
Mr. Jensen
10
rates
is great,
the roads.
0 is bad.
Yes, and he rates the quality of the roads and then makes a recommendation to us based
Well,
on his plan.
I'm just trying to get to.
So 0 is bad, 10 is good?
Which number is which?
Low,
0 is bad,
low is bad,
high is
high
good.
is good. Yes.
Dumb sounding question.
No,
Thank
it's a
you.
good question. Trust me, I've got a ton of this information floating, so I pulled it, made sure you guys were asking about it. That's, Ms. Moore, that's what you have in your hand. That's actually is the phase, as the work gets accomplished each year, that's what we work by.
This is from the county?
No, that's from Chris Jensen. And I'm getting his resume. I don't have that yet. He's the one that built our roads plan before and has a history with the road planning. We've called him.
Okay.
And he is actually, let me go over where our next steps are. Okay, step one, evaluating current information. That's what you have in your hands. So make sure you got copies because there's been a lot of question about the road plans. Step two, discussions with Soule and Jensen. What I need to understand is that one that Mr. Stukursky has is the phase project. Each step of the way, what do we do? How do we make sure it's being done? Well, the engineering report gets done for each step of the project. As that report gets done, that's how the work gets bid out to get accomplished, or we do it, or whomever does that particular piece of the work. Mr. Jensen, Chris Jensen's the one that Mr. Stevens just passed in the report. That particular report is what he did. That is dated in 2007. So what we're going to do is update a report based on current conditions. Once we get Mr. Jensen's report, we will then have a better understanding of what phase or what, because we may need to rearrange. Again, you all know that money has, we don't have the same level of funding, so we have to take care of the criticals.
Put a time frame around this for me, Bob. Some people may be sitting here thinking this is in the next 2 weeks and
Oh, no, this
in the
is...
next 6 months. I mean, what are we looking at?
It's probably a 6-month, before we start actual work, through that project. It takes about 60 days, maybe 90 for the entire work to be, or the roadways to be evaluated. In the meantime, we're also doing the county cut plan. The county's going in and making changes, upgrading some of the piping and stuff. It'd be foolish not to find out what their next steps were and then go and have a paving contract and have the roads cut up. So they have an actual cut plan, and Eddie's working on getting that for us.
Tom, just as another point, the last plan that was in place was actually a 10-year cycle.
Right. Yes.
Where from year 1 to year 10, 100% of the 60 miles of road were to be repaved. But they weren't the same number of miles every year.
Right.
Parkway is different than secondary roads, private roads, secondary roads.
It depended upon the road
condition.
qualifications
Right.
and actually came down to cost.
Right.
Yeah, that's...
The 2 years in the plan, to Dan's point, the 2 years in the plan that we skipped are the Parkway. The next new one.
all the gasoline that people...
Well, that's why
It was always predicated on revenue. There has to be.
$2 million has been lost.
information available for us to be baked into the budget process
Correct.
going forward.
For the revised plan. Whatever, we'll get the revision, figure out what we need to do, and then we'll figure out how we might be able to fund it.
'Cause I don't see a state check coming.
I still need
Okay.
a plan for it.
So in other words, we're going to do something different, if I understand it, than we've done in the past. I mean, I think what Dan just said, that before the plan was contingent upon the revenue that we had to spend. Now, I believe we're going to find out what we need to do.
Correct.
How that can be, stretched out at the minimum.
Yeah.
And then we're going to say, where are we going to get the money from?
Correct.
Yes.
And it's going to come from some source. If it's a necessity, it's going to come.
Correct. But that's why we're, go ahead.
The point of all this, though, is any municipality, anybody that has roads needs to deal with them in a certain time frame, be it 10 years or 12 years condition road. And unless you do what's necessary to be done at the right time, you're simply increasing the cost and putting it out further because there's going to be more deterioration than otherwise would exist. So sticking to this plan, we thought initially when we were cut off from the funding that we could get away with 2 years. Well, now we're in the 4th year, right? So we have to deal with this and readjust the plan as necessary, but you can't just not do it.
No,
I heard somebody say here in an interview some time ago that, the fact that we haven't done it means that we really didn't need to do it. But-
No, you can't stretch it out, for
We're at the point where
forever
we've
or
got-
anything.
we've got that.
But there is some balance. You're going to find out what it is. You're going to get the
Right.
evaluation.
Yeah,
All this
and
is
then-
very good.
And then from there,
And-
you guys decide.
And well, we're going to
We have to-
decide, yes, I mean, for sure, but, and then we're going to have to figure out, exactly what the financial impact's going to
I
be.
think that the point, Dave, you made is a critical potential change in direction here. Not that there weren't studies as to what needed to be done, so the money was spent wisely before. The fact is, it was based on the amount of money you were going to get. Now we need to truly assess, the way you crafted it, that's the difference, is what do we need to do? And what needs to be done by when to keep our roads to where they need to be? And then we have to answer the questions where the money's coming from.
Well, yeah, don't forget, we have
The horse is
approved,
now in front of the cart.
we have approved previously a resolution put forward by me originally to restrict the casino monies to roads and then modified at Dave's suggestion to infrastructure. And obviously, this is going to firm up, I think, our specific need and quantify the need so we can move to take whatever action we need to take to formalize dedication of, at least perhaps on a year-by-year basis, if not forever, of those funds for roads.
Maybe forever.
Okay.
We can anticipate this in your budget recommendations to the board this year.
I hope, that's why we have Mr. Jensen, I don't know how long his work, I need
I'm
to
just
qualify that.
trying to nail one of your feet to the floor here.
Oh, I know, so moving though. Yeah, that's why we're doing this, is so, so we get that information so we can start to plug it in. And as Mr. Stevens said, we've got to revisit our funding and figure out where it needs to come from and if it's, what the right steps are, so. We've accomplished steps 1 and 2 thus far. We're working on we've spoken to both. I understand the one spiral bound I gave you that Mr. Soule did. We have a better understanding of what Mr. Jensen did. We're re-engaging with him to come do a new plan for us. Okay? Okay, numbers. Talk about where we are number-wise. I'm not sure why mine's not red. You guys should have red.
Yeah.
Okay, it was red this morning, so I'm not sure what happened there. Wishful thinking. Okay.
Here, take this.
Now,
It'll be easier for you.
I've got mine.
Do you?
I pretty much know where they are.
I think he knows what they are.
I know what they are, but we'll just make sure. Okay. Again, I do a month-to-month, some updates to the form. We're now putting minor updates, but just some things to point out. All of them are dated now. And Mr. Gomsack, I want you to draw your attention to this one box, please.
Operating result.
Okay, every month you bring that up, so it's on there now. The reason I point that out, folks, there are 3 parts to the budget, okay? This is the operational side of the house, okay? It does not include the capital. Okay, if we look at it, admin is still in the black, straight across. The public works, these 2 numbers should be in red, okay? However, we're still 11,000 ahead of budget, 11.5. in that particular area. Public safety, okay, this particular number, actually, all three of these numbers are red on the form that you have in your hand. Not unusual. Again, that kind of ebbs and flows based on where we are.
The cost center, they should be.
They're not income producing, so they should be. But these are giving you against budgets. Rec and Parks is our highlight. They're 112,000, okay, ahead. Now, the thing I want to point out that is a significant difference if you go back and you look at this, aquatics, this number of 26.3 is actually in the red. Okay, it's not on here, but on your reports it's red, which means a negative number to us. Now, in years past, these two were rolled into the same bottom line number. Now that we're separating them, we can track it a lot better. Hence, we're seeing where some of the challenges come in. As Mr. Stevens pointed out earlier, we've got some expense management we need to take a real strong look at, to see if there's other ways we can manage that. So that number is currently in the red. The 66,000 for golf operations, this is a red number. Okay, now, that's against budget. However, I just want to point out that the golf is actually 33,570, okay, to the good right now. The actual numbers. But it is red against the budget of 66,600.
Budget of 100.
Yeah,
Yes.
but timing issues, Bob, which is always a problem in presenting numbers that go across a 12-month period. I mean, golf is supposed to be in the black after it's finished.
Absolutely.
It's summer and it's buffer season, and where it goes into the red is always when people
The
go
winter
in
months.
and play.
Sure.
The other thing about the golf course numbers, I just point out, I'm not sure I have any suggestions, but they do include food and beverage. So it is difficult to see whether or not, to see exactly or compare apples to apples, golf to golf, whereas food and beverage
When we get
is
to golf,
different.
I'll show you rounds and income on the golf side that may be helpful.
Okay.
I have a later slide because you guys asked me to get more detail on golf. That may help some.
Okay, I'm just pointing that out, Bob.
Yeah.
It's not a...
Right.
Can I ask a
Yes, sir.
newbie question on this? Golf is now being presented as one number. So you have combined what used to be called golf maintenance and golf operations
Yes.
into golf
Right.
operations.
For this report.
Okay.
Your numbers still have breakdown in the financial with the
In
same
here,
color. Yes,
that's
sir.
what I was looking at. Is
Yes,
there's-
sir.
okay.
And that's how Billy Casper looks at it, and we're conforming to their management numbers. basically.
That's what, as golf operations plus food and beverage?
Golf operations, food and beverage, and golf maintenance.
It doesn't make any difference to me. It's just a question of understanding what I'm looking at. That's-
Yeah, it's all rolled in because if you notice, as I broke each down, I'm trying to roll everything that impacts that function into those line items.
Okay.
But that's a good catch. And if you look at your...
Dan, some of the costs, I mean, obviously, a lot of the costs are specific to golf, and that's easy. Some are specific to turn and grill, but others really overlay both.
Well, no argument about that, and the fact of the matter is, we have a contractor managing it, so
Right.
what we're looking at is contractor performance here. And
Right.
That's all, I just wanted to make sure that in fact we
Yeah,
were
it's
looking at...
different than we've done in the past.
Yeah, well, I wanted to make sure that we were looking at the total cost of both operations and maintenance over there.
Okay, Beach Club, the 17 is a very positive number for us, okay? Yacht Club number against budget, okay, this 87 is in the red. Now, just so there's no misunderstanding here, if anybody wants to come look, all my numbers are clearly depicted on here. I know there's some translation here, but they're red on my original one. Before anyone says I'm hiding numbers, I'm telling you which ones are red and they're available in the report.
They're red.
Which ones should be minuses up there?
I've already been through them once, you can pick up the report. You want the right side, who asked the question?
I do.
All right, Brian, the right side, third one down, public safety is red.
Okay.
Fifth one down, aquatics is red. Golf, 66.6 is red, and yacht club, 87 is red.
Those are negative variances.
Correct.
Negative variance is the budget.
To budget, yeah.
To budget.
To budget.
To budget.
Correct. Okay? All right, and again, it's just operating, I repeat it like this every month, just so we get a month-to-month, so we can track how things are moving. Any questions about that, folks? Okay, moving on. MediaCom, lots of energy created around MediaCom lately. A lot of calls because bills have almost doubled for a lot of people right now. A couple things have happened, just so you all are aware, because I know you're receiving the calls and emails. A lot of folks were on specials, okay, which kept their bill lower than what the regular rate is. Those specials were either 12-month or 24-month specials. A lot of them have come due. Their new plan right now, and it's not managed out of the Millsboro office any longer for their sales side of it, which manages the plans, is someone has to be out of a special for 6 months before they can be reapplied back into a special. Okay, this is directly from the MediaCom folks. We looked into it to find out what was going on. So those costs that have increased is folks coming out of their special time and they're going to the rate in 6 months later. They have the opportunity to reapply for, make a phone call and try to reapply for whatever the latest special is. Now, November 3rd at 5:30, right here, Glenn will be here from MediaCom. He's the new regional director. He replaced Mr. Dave Kane. So those who have had meetings, I've met with him. Glenn is now in, and if you have questions before the meeting, that he could get the questions and get ahead of them and be able to talk to them, please pass them on to Teresa and her team, because she's fielding some questions. She's coordinating with the MediaCom folks to get those, so we have those that can be answered ahead of time, and then of course they'll do the open discussion once they're here. Yes, sir.
Hate to sound negative, but I'm going to anyway.
Okay.
But it's nothing to do with you. I've been to,
Not this time.
I've been to 4 of those meetings. I've been to 4, I mean, you know, and, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, anybody decides that you're wrong. Have any of them done any of our MediaCom customers, the slightest bit of good?
Only to allow
Yeah.
people to
Yeah.
vent, I think, Dave.
Actually,
To allow people to vent.
The
yeah.
only thing that I can, and this is so small it barely tips the boat, after last meeting, Teresa did track with MediaCom to see if they did in fact even follow up with the people who are at the meetings. Now, maybe the answers weren't what people wanted to hear, but did they at least get an answer?
And they got an answer.
And they did get answers. They didn't say they were any good, but they did get answers. I wanted to add something else to clear some things up as well. Every year this comes up, there's a lot of energy around the MediaCom contract. Let me just say this. I wrote these kind of contracts for a living. I've read the MediaCom contract at least 4 times now. And I say this not jokingly, but seriously. Whoever wrote that contract for MediaCom probably should have been promoted. They did a great job on their side, representing their needs as a corporation. There's all kinds of history as to how we got into the contract we've got. I can tell you, there is no wiggle room to get out of that contract. I have read it now, like I said, at least 4 or 5 times. And I used to write them. So, but that does not mean that I don't, at some point during this coming year, I am going to sit down with Bob and a couple other folks and take a look at it and say, long-term, regardless of this contract, what is the long-term plan for Ocean Pines and cable coverage and that kind of thing? I don't want to just sit here and say, well, we're stuck with the contract. Even if we are, we've got to think through what the options are that are in that contract, which is not re-upping and buying them out and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I like you have read that
Yeah, I know you
contract at least that number of times. We did, and it's still on the webpage.
It's
The
there.
description of
Yeah.
exactly why we are and all of
Exactly. That was well done.
the history that's behind it. And And the history is significant. However, I wouldn't give so much credit to Mediacom because they actually, the contract before it and the contract before it.
Well, they'll give them credit.
Yeah, well.
Whoever wrote it on the other side did a darn good job. Bill?
Biggest problem that we have with Mediacom is the fact, as a community, a municipality, or as an individual, we do not have any place to go beyond Mediacom to issue our concerns.
Correct.
The biggest problem with that is, the last time I checked my geography, Ocean Pines is located in the state of Maryland. According to what is in there, we come under the auspices of the Public Service Commission of Delaware. I am personally in the process, and we are not the only community in the state of Maryland in that situation. I am personally in the process of trying to identify other communities in the state of Maryland who are in that situation with Mediacom. And then I think maybe we need to pursue the contract's the contract. But coming on the Public Service Commission of Delaware is another issue. And I think that's something that eventually we maybe need to pursue.
You and I have talked about that.
Right.
I had just one more point to make in that, and that's that, and you kind of touched on it, Pete, Tom, when you said they followed up. So you got, 8 people, so I don't know, Teresa could tell us, 12 people, I don't know. But
There were quite a few.
But the thing of it is that if you look at, for example, those deals that you get, basically, it's some people who knew that they existed, was able to call up, maybe make a deal. There's no across the board. Am I correct, Bob? And there's no across the board deal, no rules or regulations. It's simply you pick up the phone and say, hey, I'm going to go to DirecTV. And formerly it was Dulcie who said, hey, good words, Dave. Now you're on it. I've been on the special deal for 4 years. I mean, but everybody doesn't know that's available.
And there's another issue along that same line. If you're not a full-time resident in Ocean Pines, during the off-season, you get a tremendous reduction in your cable bill. They don't promote that or communicate that to anyone unless you happen to find out through someone else.
Exactly.
Now, we'll wrap up the meeting.
You're not a good company.
I just want to make sure that people are clear that the Ocean Pines Association, unfortunately, has no power, leverage with Mediacom. We do host the meeting, which allows our folks to have a direct and more easy, they can gather to have the conversation with Mediacom. But we've had quite a few emails from folks saying, what can Ocean Pines do about this packages that went up in price? There's nothing we can do about that. Dan?
One other thing that goes along with Mediacom is the fact that Ocean Pines property owners are consumers, and there are choices.
Oh, yeah.
All right, and there's example right now, Verizon's got an introductory package out there that is equal to Mediacom's full package, but it costs $54 a month for the next year, and then obviously it goes up again for the following year. My point is this, as we look at the situation with Mediacom, we also have to look at the possible choices that property owners can make. And if they elect to go to DirecTV or somebody like that, we're getting into a CPI area where, in fact, what do you do with the antenna? Because you have to have a straight shot at a satellite. If you wander through Ocean Pines, you will find that antennas beginning to crop up in yards, and things like that. They're not, I haven't seen one that's violating our roofline directive at this point in time. But it's something for us to just keep in the back of our minds, that we may well have to address that and clarify it.
This introductory offer concept is not unique to Mediacom. You can get the Washington Post, by the way, for 6 months at a very low rate. And if you go off for 60 days, I think, right? It's not as said yes. So that concept of getting it low and then returning to normal rates is Not unusual at all.
No, but it is a choice, that was my
Oh, sure.
point. And
Yeah,
what I'm concerned about
No, I was just
is-
finding your email where it went up a lot, you said.
Well, I was just, but my point is
CPI.
concern about the satellite reception package, because that does come back and haunt us to a certain degree. We need to
We
be aware
actually
of it.
subscribed to DirecTV, and
For
the
every
guys said can't
solution,
do
there
it.
are potential negatives without question.
Yeah.
For those that want more detail, there are two documents you can find on the website. One in particular, Mr. Stevens wrote outlining the contract in great detail of how it occurred. I went back and read that last week to make sure, coming to the meeting, if I had any questions, I had that, fresh in my memory. Also, Mr. Bill Straka with the Communication Advisory Committee last year wrote something talking about some of the differences, involved with MediaCom and satellite dishes and those type of things. So those two are available if folks are interested. Okay, just helps clarify. Okay, delinquent assessments. Lots of energy lately around delinquent assessments. Instead of just kind of letting it, boil up, I thought, you know what, I'm going to just address it. I passed out. We are following Resolution F04. Okay, let's start there so everyone understands the process. Simplest way to look at it is if you go to the dates on here, July, August, September, October, November, and March again. These are the trigger dates when folks that are behind in their assessments are reached out to. A series of letters and contact points is included in all of your documentation. Okay, I covered this back in March timeframe, but there seems to be energy around it right now, so I thought, you know what, let me just bring it up, especially with some new folks on the board so they understand. This is the process we follow. Anybody had a chance to look at that? Okay. I know this is, information that the FO4, a lot of folks were already aware of, but I just want to make sure I went through it again. Okay, the next document that I've passed out, there's been energy around where we are with our collections. Let me make sure that I walk through the process with you. We identified 125 accounts, okay, that were identified to start the foreclosure proceedings on based on the amount that they owed Ocean Pond. Okay, that's where it started, how much was owed to us. There are many steps that go into that, and I'm going to go through some of those. But and you have the trigger points that I handed out first, FO4. Let's go to the sheet I just passed out, the foreclosure status sheet. These individuals, the 125 accounts, were broken down into blocks of 10 for manageable chunks to work through, okay? The first section is the result of the first 30. Okay, everybody see that? That first column, first 30. 3 of those 30 went to bank foreclosure.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
They're broken down into
There were 125 identified.
groups of,
Hang on, groups of 10.
Yeah, there were 125 based
And-
on how egregious
and how
they
did
were.
you break them down into groups of 10?
Amount owed, they went by amount
Highest to
owed.
lowest.
Amount owed.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Okay, by amount owed. Okay, I
Okay.
understand. Got it.
Okay, of the first 30, and again, that would be the first 3 blocks of 10, okay, here's the current status. 3 went to bank foreclosure. 4 went to bankruptcy. However, 2 of those folks have scheduled payment plans with us. 2 have paid. 3 are on regular payment plans. Again, when they're triggered, they're notified, they come in, they work out a payment plan. 1 property sold. It was a bank foreclosure sale, residence, it was sold due to foreclosure sale by the bank, and we are still owed money on that. 17 of the first 30, and you see the breakdown.
Yeah, before you get to that.
Yes.
It says residents sent to collections for
Right, I was
write-off.
going to come back to that, but yeah,
Yeah.
just, I'll do it now. when we have a write-off or a loss, we send it to the collection agency. That is a new step that we have, and I'm going to go into great detail on that one. Okay, OPA foreclosure proceedings started. There were 17 remaining of that first group. One is on a payment plan, paying as agreed. There became a conflict with our attorney on the foreclosure because they had done business with that attorney's group before, so it created conflict, and we're working with another attorney's firm to go after that one. One of those remaining 17 recently claimed bankruptcy. 7 have paid. 1 has died. 2 are scheduled for sale, foreclosure sale, in November. 4 were on payment plans, had started making the payments and then ceased making the payments. When they cease making the payments, we pick up our collection or our foreclosure process where it dropped off, and we put them right back in the fold and begin again. That's the first 30. Yes, sir.
Emphasize where it dropped off, not starting from the beginning again.
No, where it dropped off. Okay, the second 30, groups 4 through 6. 2 went to bank foreclosure. 4 have paid. 3 are on payment plans. 4 owner sales and all back money were collected. Owners, sold their property and squared up with us. 17 were put on hold this July due to the increase in fees. I'll go over that. I'll break that down next. So that covers the first 60 of the 125. Third group, this is an interesting group, There are 13, that's not the traditional 10. That group is made up of folks that have been through the cycles of letters that are have been delinquent with us and are now, waiting till November allows us to attach what's due this year as well, because they've gone through all of their letter process, so then we can start the foreclosure on them. If we'd started that a month ago or 2 months ago, we couldn't have claimed this year's overdue because we hadn't followed our process. So by November, we will be adding 13 more to the foreclosure process. Similar situation with the last 8 through 12. Some changes this year. All right, any questions about that so far?
Why are they different?
Why are what different?
They owe less.
They owe less?
They're
Can you
broken
give me
down
an
in-
idea about what the
Yeah.
last group owes? I mean, just to get a general idea of how they're, roughly.
What
I
group
mean,
you want? 6?
Go to, last group should be 12.
I just got through 6.
6. 8. Put 6 down.
The fourth group.
Well, I don't have,
Group 6, the amounts are in the $3,000 to $4,000 range. And by the way, that includes interest, attorney's fees, in some cases CPI fees, where we've had to go in and clean up the property. We charge them $200 or $400 or whatever. So the answer to the question is Group 6 is in that range of 3,000 is the lowest currently owed, and 4,800 is the highest, as I'm looking at this schedule.
I only have 4 groups. I guess I don't know where Group 6 comes from. I mean, the 125 accounts, you divide them up into 30 apiece.
No.
Groups of 10.
And many, many more than that, Dave.
Yeah, there's groups of 10.
Stratified by groups of 10.
Okay.
Group 1, Group 2, Group 3.
See on the column?
But you're reporting the status in groups of 30.
So in
Yeah,
your,
and I wrote
but
it down
Dave,
as that way.
Dave,
See
his
up there on the left, groups
his
1 through
numbers
3,
are in
Dave?
your second horizontal row, group 6. If you look at your second horizontal row, group 6 is the last group in that group of numbers. So that's what Pete's giving you right now, is an idea of what's going on in that area.
I see, groups 4 to 6.
See the left-hand
Yeah,
column?
I see what you're
Got
saying.
it?
See?
Yeah.
Got it.
3 separate and distinct groups, 1, 2, and 3. The next one is three other
Right.
separate and distinct groups, groups 4, 5, and 6, right?
Yep.
Okay.
And you had,
And then he's
And
talking
group
about
six
group
is
7, which is
3,000.
the next, right?
Group 6 is roughly 3,000, something in that
Right.
order.
Per
And-
house.
And Group 1 must be,
They, yeah, right.
Yeah, they're 4, 5, 6,000 on some.
okay.
Just give you a heads up where we are. All right, I just passed out the next thing, okay, that I want to share with you, foreclosure cost per property. Easy to say we should go ahead and just attach and foreclose. Simple, broad brush, go after everybody. There's always a cost associated with doing business. So let's talk about the cost. I've gone over it, but this time we decided to put it in writing so everyone was very clear on it. Okay, when we first started this process, or I say first started, for years, the process is in the left column, before increasing costs. You can see the total costs, okay, to take someone to foreclosure. Okay, we did it, I broke it into two sections for you. One is the subtotal, okay, and that's assuming we don't have to go to the actual auction and foreclose on the property, up to the point where we encourage people to come in and make their payment. We go through that foreclosure, and you can see all the steps that are incurred there, all the costs, is between $1,400 and $1,740. Okay? Now, this was prior. Then you move, if you actually have to go to sell that property, the cost increased to somewhere between $2,000 and $2,350. This was prior to July of this year. With the changes, with the foreclosure status, with so many things changing with the banks and foreclosures and those type of things, other steps have been or cost increases have been put in place. If you look after the increase in cost as of July, the first subtotal, okay, is between $1,800 and $2,140. The second set, total cost to foreclose on the property is between $2,425 and $2,750. These are real costs. What this does not include, okay, is there's another step that's now been added to the process. Before you can foreclose, you are required to go to mitigation. That's where you go, you sit, and I've already been to one. I went with Joe Moore. We had to go to Salisbury, meet with someone who's in arrears on us. We were going through the process. The step had come up. If the client, or in their case, the homeowner or property owner, requested mitigation, we're required to go through that. We had to drive to Salisbury. Mitigator came down from the Baltimore area for a half-hour, 40-minute meeting, and we went through the details of the file, went through everything. And then and the goal is to come up with some sort of payment plan or some meaningful relationship so we get back on path to get paid. Move forward with it. So now those costs are not incurred on here. Please understand.
Give me a number.
That's probably another $600 in attorney's fees.
Okay.
Maybe plus or minus, but it won't be much less than
And
that.
you're saying the mitigation costs are, you cannot.
No, I'm guessing between about $600 by the time we pay.
Well, you say they're not on there.
They're not included in this.
They're not included in that, but on the
Correct.
other hand, they are
It's a cost
paid.
to us.
It would be a cost.
It is a cost to us.
There would be another cost added.
We can't add that to the lien.
Oh, no, we do.
Well, okay.
But if you collect it, great. If you don't collect it, then you're out
Well,
of pocket.
I understand that, but I
It's
just
not
wanted to
on
make
here
sure
because of- yeah,
that for
you-
mitigation, the same thing applied as normal.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So that would be inserted somewhere in this process.
Yeah.
I can't tell where, but wherever mitigation, it's hopefully between the sub and the total. Now,
Total.
I'll go on next step. Let me tell you what's happened with that account. Worked out a deal, no payments. 2 months go by, we have to jump back into our foreclosure process, which we're now doing. Additional costs. So we've incurred the additional cost for mitigation, and then we have to restart, not at the beginning, please, but we plug back in where we were. So just so everyone's aware of the cost, or the fact, this is for each and every property that we attempt foreclosure on, cost-wise.
Dave just made a comment that was, I think, answering a question that I wasn't sure about. These costs are recoverable if, in fact, we collect. In other words, you attach them to the amount of
Yes, sir.
outstanding dues due as part of the lien against that property.
Correct, and let's talk about that a little bit. They are recoverable if there's enough value in the property.
That's what I meant.
Unfortunately, and you see in here as a title update, title search fees. Okay, so the attorney does it, they tell us of any liens on the property. Hence, at that point, we have to make an informed decision of what, is it worth going the next step and incurring these additional costs. If the value's not there, it's a little difficult to justify spending more association money and not having the value there to collect it. Yes, sir.
As I understand this, the best case scenario, aside from the folks paying the money.
Yes.
But the worst case scenario, the best case scenario for us is if the bank takes over and sells the property. Because upon the sale, we redeem our costs. do we not?
It's a priority.
No, they do it.
No.
If they do
If
a
the bank
short
gets
sale-
shorted, then we get nothing.
Okay.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
They walk away, their first
Okay.
mortgage, okay?
Okay.
Yeah, there's a
We're left holding the bag.
Bill, to your point, there was a misunderstanding there was a law passed in Maryland last year that put homeowners associations higher up in the ranking of getting money, but it does not guarantee us all of the money that we're due.
3 months.
Right.
3 months.
3
is all
months
you
was
are
the amount that we could
guaranteed to
recover
get.
under that. 3 months of
If there's
dues,
any money left over.
$200 or $300.
So if somebody owes,
$3,000.
yeah, whatever. I
It was
mean,
irrelevant to
So,
us.
when I first heard about the law, this is great, we're going to be up in front and we'll get our money. Nah, it's 3 months worth of,
State guild.
if there's any money left over.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Given everything, I think you said everything I thought I knew, except that mitigation part, I wasn't sure.
Yeah, that's
But
new.
given those circumstances, that, we have to recover the money in order to get our legal costs back, I wonder if the process of picking out, of setting the groups of 10 into, by virtue of the amount owed, is really, I don't want to say it, the
The
smartest,
best process?
the smartest way to do it.
Great question.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to plug in another step here. Let me go through it, and it may answer part of it, because that's a great question. We've got to figure out if our process is the most sound process. Let's go to this, and then I think I'm going to address that issue in a little more detail. Assessments receivable, just so everyone can see that we are tracking this in great detail. Let's go to the bottom, 9/30/2010. Does everyone see that?
Yep.
Yep.
If you read all the way across, okay, net accounts receivable as of September 30th, 2010 is $546,960. Everybody see that number? If you go up two blocks, okay, you see $687,956. That's the current year. We're tracking this in great detail to include year over year so we can see what the trend is for us. Now, let's back up just a little and go across the top, because this is something we generate each month. If you look, you see what the current year assessments are due, okay? You notice on 5/31, we had $1 million due. What's the current year? The bills just came due. If you'll notice now, the current year due is down to $395,000. Just so you're following the columns. Prior year, yes.
Show me that one.
First current year
First
column.
column.
Current year column, all the way down the bottom.
Well, start at the top,
All right,
1 million,
Okay, I was over here.
September 30th this year versus last year.
All right.
go straight down the column. Current due is $395,000.
Up only 60%.
Got it.
Okay? Prior year, okay, these are assessments that are due from last year. 5/31/2011 is $277,000. This year is $232,000 as of right now. Everybody follow that?
Bob, you might point out the 106 means it's up 6%, but that reflects also about a 4% dues increase.
Everybody follow that?
No.
And again, you don't see these every day, every month.
You gotta
so-
know, so do it
Yeah,
again.
no, that's fine.
Current year,
Which one are you looking at?
Just take the current year,
Yes, sir.
go down 1, 2, 3, the fourth box down where the 1.05 is. That's where I'm along. What does that mean? And what am I missing?
The increase.
you looking
The
at May or you looking at September?
No,
Look at,
1.05.
just look at the current year column.
There was $1 million due as of May
Right.
30th, May 31st, 2011,
And
May
2010.
31st, 2010. So there's a $45,000 increase,
So that's
1%.
That's 1% or
1
5%?
I'm sorry, 1.05%.
It's 5% over the same period prior
Prior
year.
year.
But that's a percentage, and
Yes.
it's not times 100.
No, it's 105%, which means a 5% increase over the
5.
prior year.
That's what I thought I was
Okay.
saying. Thank you. I just wasn't sure. It's not labeled. I hate things that aren't labeled. I'm sorry.
Okay. And then if you go down each year, you see we track it, current year, prior year, 3 years, 4 years, and other charges would be all the additional fees. Associated gives us our totals. If we have less bad debt, make sure everybody understands that column. If someone, goes to a bank foreclosure and the house is upside down and there's nothing to be had there, it's written off as a bad debt. There's no value there to go after from attaching the property at that point.
How does that translate into this page? In other words, if somebody of the 125,
Bank foreclosure,
that's these guys.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but there's a number of pieces that can go. Write-offs are determined by a number of factors. I was giving you one example of the bank foreclosure. There's no value, so therefore there's, go ahead. You want to jump in, go ahead.
Let me just explain. The less bad debt, that's the allowance for uncollectible accounts. It's not specific as to particular accounts. It's a general evaluation allowance for the entire group to state it not in excess of net realizable value. What happens is, and that's a bad debt expense. We, like any other business, incurs a bad debt expense each year. You have a gross receivable, actually, at the end of September of $804,000. But against that, we have this allowance for doubtful accounts to state those on our balance sheet at a lesser amount of $687. Now, what happens is when we write off an account, we write it off, the receivable off against that allowance for doubtful account, but then to get it up to another, so anyway, that's not as to specific accounts, and once it's written off the books, and you don't need the allowance anymore because it's gone, right? But what Bob pointed out earlier, which is important, is that in the past, Ocean Pines would write them off and forget about them. But now, we go after them, thanks to efforts by a board before I was on it, to go after those, but we actually implemented here in the last year, hired a collection agency, we're under contract with a collection agency, never before happened in Ocean Pines. Once it's now written off, we don't just say forget about it, we actually go after them under the contract to collect, and we have to pay them, I don't know, 30% or some damn thing, but we never did it before. That's something new.
Before Bob moves on to the next thing here, I'd like to point out that in the past 5 to 10 years, most boards did not have a clue what the procedures were, what the dollars were, or what action was being taken to take care of this situation, even though it has been an ongoing thing. And I'd like to thank Bob for putting this together, especially in this kind of detail, to give us an idea of what we're talking about on these collections. Because I think it was a previous board member, I won't mention any names, Marty, that brought this up and brought it to the attention, as you mentioned a minute ago. And at least we're getting an idea of what we're talking about.
Well, it's an important issue that requires clarification.
That's exactly right, yeah.
There's one column that's not here. That's a real simple column, and it's probably something you have on top of your head, but
Good luck.
let's look at cumulative over 5 years, the last 5 years, in terms of just sheer numbers of accounts that are into this process. Right now, it's 125 this year. What was it last
We
year, the
have
year
far more than that people owe us.
Okay, it's...
This is the...
Well, no, yeah, I know. I'm just
Okay.
looking at, what, you're showing us dollar trends here. I'm just looking for raw count trends. Have we gone from 50 of them in the group, in the package, 5 years ago to 125 this year, or?
For a trend.
Yeah, I'm just number of properties. Pete, I don't know if you have them, I don't know if Art's got them on top of his head.
I issued a report at the end of the board in February 14th, actually, 2011. There were total accounts in delinquent status one way or another, 351, aggregating $534,000.
Yeah.
Okay? I categorized those. I'll be happy to share this. I'll give you a copy of this after the meeting.
Great.
But it's all categorized. Every member of the board previously got this. And the answer to your question is 351 accounts aggregating $534,000. It's up over prior years, obviously because of the real estate market, the economy.
I understand the
all of
reason.
above.
I'm just curious about how many and how much.
The other thing, though, is that reflects people that are 1 year delinquent, 2 year delinquent, 3 year delinquent. And again, the process established was under FO4 was to prioritize, because you can't go after, that many accounts at one time. So the rationale was, let's go after those that owe us the most. And we can't work them all at one time, so let's categorize them into groups of 10, thus the groups 1, 2, 3, and 4, the groups. We have billed, I summarized that somewhere, the actual billings and assessments against which you should measure this, and I quantified it, the billings through 2007, 2010 were $26 million. And of that, we had outstanding receivables at that time of $381,000 against the $26 million.
Invisible almost, so it's a remarkably low number.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
If I can get that, thank you, Pete, that's a piece of
That's
data.
what I
Well,
was
98% of the people are paying.
That's what I was trying to get to.
Yeah,
was-
our
That's a big
membership
picture.
in total, matter of fact, if you look at when the money actually comes in, there are many, many, many of our members that pay their dues before they're even due.
Early.
Yes.
Okay, so I do not want to give the impression from this long discussion to the media or to the public that we have this, ungodly number of people that aren't paying their dues.
That was,
Although this is worth, I'd like to get back to, Bob, what is the next step? I'm adding up to over $3,000 per foreclosure. So if you could start, what comes now? Where are, if we can get back to.
Sure.
Because that's a heck of a lot of money to be risking as to whether we're going to get it or not.
Correct. And that's why we in July, our goal, let me make sure everyone understands, we do have a group that at least annually looks at this process in its entirety. They look at assessments due in detail. They look at where we are, look at the groupings, and all came to the agreement that following this process, and we met in February timeframe.
We have to report out by March 1st.
And we all agreed that the process we were following was the right process, and we're going to see it through and make adjustments, throughout the year as needed. So, and as a matter of fact, that committee, just so you know, is myself, Ruth Ann Myers, who manages this account, or these accounts, our treasurer, Pete Gomsack, Mr. Martin Baer, who is on the Budget and Finance Committee,
And the controller.
and then Art Carmine.
Controller.
So we all sit down, we go over all these and review them in detail as that committee. Now, that's the committee. Art, myself, and Ruth Ann meet much more frequently on this to discuss where we are and keep updates. These reports are generated each and every month, and we review them to see where we are. We're working very, very closely with Chris Woodley at Joe Moore's office. He keeps us abreast of where we are in each case, and they're all managed, unfortunately, they all have to be managed individually.
Well, this might be an appropriate time for me to jump in here. Bob just described the process, and the pass out that he had, resolution FO4 with some attachments, on page 2 there, you see the date we just mentioned a moment ago. By March 1, that committee And the composition of the committee is defined by the board-passed resolution, FO4. I was not then on the board, so I had nothing to do with it, but I am currently the treasurer and serve on that. The purpose of the committee is to annually convene, to review the process, and it was that process following the passing of Resolution F4 that caused us as a group at that time to conclude that we have way too many, 350 to go after all at once, so let's get a rational way to do it, starting with the highest dollars owed. And we consulted with the attorney as to the process, thus creating the groups of 10. A couple of comments on that. It went slower than it should have, I think, in my opinion. We had a couple of circumstances. We had a change in general managers. We also had the law changing. And the law is a consumer-friendly kind of law, which put more obstacles in our way, increased our costs as an association, just made the process more difficult. But I believe, Bob mentions there's been a lot of energy around this. The Budget and Finance Committee has taken on this, I think, in a way that's very aggressive. But this is a management function. This is a management function. We as a board, prior board set this policy. We as a current board or future boards can change that policy. But once a year, that group is convened and the positions, the composition of that committee is defined by the policy. I think it's working. There's a lot of, Bob came in as general manager, and he can tell you that I was in his office on various occasions, kind of moving the process along more quickly than he was moving along, quite frankly. And so Bob and I had various discussions. I had a little frustration, right, Bob?
That's correct.
But on the other hand, he stepped up. He had some plans in mind. He reorganized the process itself from a management standpoint. More recently, even there's some of the reconfiguration of the offices over there is to allow Ruth Ann Meyer, the supervisor, to have more privacy to work out payment arrangements with people in private conversations rather than out in the public. All of that consistent with a plan that he has, and I'm confident that he's devoting the energy to it and got the resources. So I'm not going to try and manage it as a board member or as a treasurer. I will evaluate it. It's part of the function of the general manager to do that. But I would say it is not the function of this board or any committee to manage that process. Oversight, suggestions, fine. That's all I'm going to say.
One last question, Bob, from my end, and that's, you mentioned as you were going down your first, before the foreclosure cost per property sheet,
Yes, sir.
you said that at the title search fee point, you make a decision as to whether to proceed with the process or not based upon what's owed on
I mean,
the
if
property.
it's upside down.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
Is that a decision that you make, or is that a decision made by?
Ruth Ann, myself, and Art will get
Art,
together and look
okay.
at it.
Fine.
And then Pete's often brought in on those because he's asking me pretty consistently
Okay.
about them, so,
Thank you.
yeah.
I don't think the board wants to get involved in the day-to-day.
Over my dead body.
I don't see any of the questions that you're being asked as getting involved in the day-to-day.
That's why
I mean, we have
I'm
these
laying it out.
numbers and it's good, and now we have to look at what they really mean. Yeah, I know all about the policy. I think I read.
Your signature's on it.
You signed on it.
I take no credit, Dave.
I didn't write it, but I did sign it.
That was
And this is a significant issue. I think it requires board attention. It requires board involvement, not in the day-to-day, but in terms of questioning how to proceed.
No, there's one more thing before you get to that. I think it is critical that we understand, as all of you know, I'm famous for very long meetings because I don't put aside energy. When issues have energy around them, I think it's valuable. I've not seen this level of presentation at a board meeting, and I've been here over a year. So I think it is very valuable that this has been brought to the table, regardless of the energy around it, whether we loved it or not. The fact is, I think it's very valuable that this has been brought to the table. Bob is very thorough. So far as I'm not an auditor, so I don't play one on TV either. But I just want to make sure you understand, energy around an issue in Ocean Pines is not necessarily negative. Sometimes it raises to the surface something that we need to be paying attention to, and that's what we're doing. So, Bob, go ahead.
Mr. Wentworth?
No, I was just going to say, not only it's very informative to the OPA members.
Yes.
It's streamed, it's on the TV, they understand what's happening in these things. At least it's available, the communication is available to them, for them to be informed.
And I will tell you, speaking of some of that energy, as I fold into this one, I've had the Budget and Finance Committee with a lot of questions, and I've had a couple of individual homeowners come in asking for this information. And when we went through it, I just kept putting them in the folder and detailed it, knowing I'd use it for this meeting. So it was through a lot of questioning that all this was put together so you guys could see it in the whole package. Okay, now, through that collections, the other thing that we did this year, okay, went through the foreclosure, the next thing we did was engage with DCI Collections out of Salisbury. It's a collection company, okay, that once property goes to a foreclosure and creates a write-off for us, you know, we don't have our monies, we decided not to let that set and just go away. We engaged in a collection agency. I've handed out our current status. We engaged with them in the August time frame. When we engaged with them, there's some documentation that needed to be done. We sent over 43 accounts initially, and they totaled an amount of $48,624.75. Notice I put on this cover, DCI assigned start dates for collections of 9/21. You wonder where that gap came in. Go to page 2 of this document. We had to create a sample, this is a sample, but a bill for each and individual member that fell into this case. We then had to go back individually and add up all the different fees and break it down in this format before we could turn it over to them. She went through each and every account, put it in this format, and then forwarded it to them. She's already working on the next set, you know, the formatting now, we know what they need in preparation. However, as you see, 9/21 means they've only been working on it for about a month, okay? So we're gauging what actually occurs through this process to see if this is the next thing. So Mr. Stevens, I believe to your question, what happens to some of the folks that may either fall through the crack, or we may not be able to go after otherwise, we're planning potentially to use this tool for a number of different conditions. Right now, we're just doing it for the write-offs, the ones that we can't do anything about. Send it to the collection agency. They collect approximately 30% of it. We get 70% for whatever they recover. Yes, sir.
Well, that's good information, but it wasn't my question.
Okay, please ask it again.
My question goes back to the process whereby you're taking the most delinquent, the highest dollar value of owed. And I'm questioning, just questioning, whether or not that in fact is the right way to approach it. Whether or not, in fact, we should not be looking at it in terms of the amount that is most likely to be recovered. In other words, I mean, you could have a very high dollar value where there are so many liens on a property that you could have no possible way of recovering any money, and you would be wasting money going through the process. Whereas you could, going through the full foreclosure process, whereas in another case, you may have a lesser amount that's owed, but on the other hand, have a very good chance of going through the foreclosure process. And I think, you know, I mean, I don't know why, I don't see anything in here that says that you're looking at, or that anybody is looking through that process. Okay, so you follow what I'm saying?
I do.
Okay.
Go ahead, you want to jump in? You got
Pete's just ready.
Yeah, go ahead, Pete, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Again, we started this process before Bob was even general manager.
Well, it's...
No. The answer to your question is this. The starting point is to stratify them according to amount owed. The next step is exactly what you just outlined.
Yep.
Of the identified group of 10, you may discard the first 3 because of this circumstance or that circumstance. Of that group of 10, you may end up focusing on only 3 of them. That's where the judgment comes in, and the individual energy, time, and effort. But you have to have a starting point, Dave. So rather than start with 1,400, we started with 10, and we went through that 10. And actually, the first 10, I think, we worked out, we either got paid or worked out payment plans with, I believe, 6 or 7 of them.
7 of them.
Of those 10. But it isn't until you dig down, drill down into the specifics of each and every case, Dave, and you say, oh, let's go after this one because they've got equity in the property, or this one doesn't have any mortgage on it. But you don't know that until you start analyzing one by one by one. So that process that you described is exactly what ought to be done and is exactly what is being done. But you have to have a starting point somewhere, and then you go on to the next group of 10, and you go through the same process. Get the information for each one, do the research, time and energy, sometimes cost, and then only then, because our objective is not to own property. Our objective is to collect what's owed us. But we have to do it in an organized, systematic way. We do exactly what you've just suggested, account by, and that's where the management responsibility comes in. We don't gather the committee together to talk about this one and that one. We're leaving that up to management. I hope that answers your question. It is being done, but you have to have a way to do it, and the way to do it is to focus on it in groups of 10.
Just to add to that one comment, Dave, we talked a little bit about at what point do you know how many liens are out there and how much money is actually owed on this property by the property owner? And that's only when you get to the point where you do the title search. Because that's the only time you know what's really recorded against the property. So,
And the other thing is, you don't know by...
Excuse me.
I'm sorry.
I recognize Terry.
I beg your pardon.
Thank you. I actually use DCI in my business, and they also do lien searches and check everything to make sure what's recoverable and what's not before they do it.
Yeah, but they come way later.
But things change.
Sure they do.
Things
Yeah.
change. So
One of the things-
it's like a double check system, and
Yeah,
then they.
and to your point, as we go through this process with them, because I've had some experience on the financial world with them, and it was good, favorable on the favorable side from their ability to collect. This may be something that we inject sooner in the process if we find it's more cost effective. We need to look at it. And that's what part of the evaluation as we go through this and try it. So, Mr. Stevens, you're absolutely correct. We need to continue to evaluate and look at this piece by piece. I'm not going to tell you this is the perfect process, but I'm going to tell you it seems to be working fairly well for us. We're certainly tracking it much closer than we've ever had. And we're certainly engaging on it. Mr. Gobsack alluded to the fact we're rearranging some space to give Ruth Ann the ability to be more proactive and certainly at the same time protect the rights of our membership. If someone is having some difficulty, I find it strange that the only place that they can actually come and talk to Ruth Ann about it is standing at the far window at the counter. And it's just so... I don't know why we've done that. So we're giving her a separate office where she can focus more of her energy, and certainly now that we've passed the season where we have the most activity at the admin building, Ruth Ann's role is becoming, she's spending more time in this process, engaged in the process. So we should be able to not only track our results better, but find out what's working and what's not working so well.
One of the things that just jumps out at me, and it may already be in the process, and I've read this, but I mean, back to some of Dave's point, I think, is also how do you wean out those that are collectible or not, and that's in the process. But if the hurdle, I used to use the phrase hurdle rate, is $3,000 to even get to a foreclosure on anybody, if you look at that number, does that need to be plugged into this process to say anybody who owes less than $3,000, you're not going to foreclosure because there's no queen in it.
Not to interrupt, but not necessarily. If someone has a $300,000 house, they owe $100 on it, okay, and we can go to foreclosure. We can collect the $3,000 plus.
Right.
In other words, there's enough equity there where we can make that decision. The challenge comes in.
Well, my point is, let me rephrase my.
Okay.
If somebody, I'm not disagreeing with you.
No, that's fine.
If they owe us $2,300 it's going to cost us $3,000, whether they can pay it or not. What do we do with that?
Well, technically, that would be a $5,300. The 3 that we have vested plus the 23 they owe us,
Right,
because
right.
those costs get passed on. We could continue the foreclosure if
all right,
there's equity
okay.
there.
But
Okay.
Tom, if they owe us $2,300, they're way down in a low group.
Okay.
That's right.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Although they may be eminently
Although they
collectible.
might be collectible today.
Right.
Well,
Eminently.
and that might
But
be
we're
someplace
focusing
for
on the higher
DCI.
dollar amounts first.
I got it.
I know you are, and that would,
Okay.
and that's my whole,
Yeah, you had a
that's
good
my
question,
whole
and that's what we
point.
did.
That's where
Right.
DCI strategy.
Right.
We're going to see how this works with them, with this group, and see what type of shortcomings
Yeah.
or how well it works. That may be the right strategy. Instead of expending $3,000, we do that decision and go, okay, look, it's going to cost us to collect on the $2,000, 30%. That's more cost effective, and we just apply DCI, and we don't go through the steps with the attorney.
Bill?
I think DCI is a very important component here because they don't make any money unless they collect money.
Correct.
So in identifying, they're a key component.
Sure.
Dan asked a question earlier, I want to make a comment. The banks are prohibited from giving us information about the amount that's owed by the homeowner. We know, because it's part of the public records, what the original mortgage was, and that's it. Someone may have a line of credit of $50,000. We don't know whether they have no borrowings against that line of credit or $48,000. They're not allowed to tell us how much they're owed. So we start off with that. Again, it's all about consumer protection and privacy protection and so forth. One thing that Bob mentioned about tracking and so forth, what he didn't say was, we're collecting.
Well, the numbers say we're collecting. Just his report shows that we're
Okay.
Well,
Thank you.
yeah, but, I mean, but the report also shows, I mean, it's very difficult to say how it's working. It's much better than when we did what we had. It's much, much better, and there is a process, and it's going along. All those are really good things, but in terms of how well it's working, I mean, you've got an economy where the delinquencies went up, and the numbers don't show that. Let me put it this way, the numbers do not show that we're getting ahead of the game. They do not show that.
Compared to what? I mean, you have to take into account the economic circumstances, and
I just
it's
said
all
that.
fueled by the real estate values, right?
And I just said that.
And with
I mean,
with the
sure.
declining real estate values, we're really
But the
challenged.
bottom line is, given all those things, we're not really getting ahead of the game. I mean, we're getting more delinquencies, we're falling further behind.
Got to give it some more time.
Bob pointed out, though, that the delinquencies for the current year are only 5% over last year at the same time, September 30th, and most of that is because the dues went up 4%. Okay. I think Dan's
We
right.
could be
Dan
here
had
for
his-
3 hours. One more comment.
Yeah, we will be.
Next March, we are going to get a report from the committee specified in the resolution.
Right.
And I'm quite sure that they will deal with all of these issues, and there will have been enough time that has passed to see if the collections agency process is working, to take a good hard look at how this program is working. Well, so,
And if the board wants to revise the policy at that point in time, they can revise the policy.
exactly my point.
Yeah.
This is not going to go away.
Right.
All right. Bob, next.
Okay, some other activities just to make sure you folks are aware. We have drainage for Section 3 area is met with we have brought it up. It's corresponded with our county officials, and they've decided to put another committee together to evaluate the drainage. Okay. Myself and Eddie Wells are the two Ocean Pines folks on the committee. Commissioner Boggs, Commissioner Bunning, John Huston, Ed Tudor, Chris McCabe, Frank Adkins, trying to think of who's in the room because we just had our first meeting, to discuss it, to look at options, to find out if there's strategies. We are looking at, we're taking another look at what strategies we might be able to employ. Those that don't know, there was a proposal, and I reaffirmed that when I sent a letter to the commissioners when they were deliberating on their budget, saying that we would be willing to engage via manpower and equipment to help resolve the issue if they'd be willing to supply the materials and this was where the sticking point was, and the oversight of the project. That became a slight sticking point because if we're doing the work, the question is, why would they oversee? And it seemed to be a little gray there. The truth of the matter is, Beecham Road's not ours.
That's right.
I can't have guys working out there.
And that's what,
Like, would expect me-
Was every-
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry.
Hey, you were first.
Was everybody brought up to date on what all has transpired before? And, I mean, we were at a certain point where I thought a conclusion was reached, and
I thought
somebody
so
backed
too, and the majority of that group, as you heard the names, have been involved in it
out. They were?
all along. So,
And so they're all on the same page and said, yeah, there was, but now
yes, sir.
something different.
That's about right.
Okay.
The problem we're trying to solve, just to make sure that I know this, is that we need to increase the drainage pipe size under Beecham Road and through the adjoining property to St. Martin, to the St. Martin's River,
Down.
to get the kind of drainage we
Or
need.
straight down, either
Or
across
straight,
down
parallel down the road
Parallel
to
down
where
the
our,
road.
to where our
Badger
boat
pipe
launch
is the
facility
issue,
is.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Okay.
And we have performed a system, and paid for, a systems engineering study, which
Yes,
the
sir.
county requested that we do,
That's
as a
correct.
prelude to their, implementing this.
So,
Good luck to the committee.
just a heads up, we're still working on it. Or we just started the process, so I'm, good, bad, or indifferent, that's where we are. Refuse collection, our contract is coming up with Chesapeake Waste. We have recreated the new RFP for it. We've had a couple people look at it, to include Mr. Terry, and it all looks good. We'll be sending that out maybe as early as this afternoon, at the latest tomorrow. We talked about, earlier it was talked about with the energy, we're talking about the covered pool in particular. Okay, when we're looking at that particular pool, we are looking at some energy options. I went up, and the first Flexera had a lack of a better term, kind of a grand opening. They did a pool up off of 54, off the refuge is the subdivision up there, and they had, what was really, really neat was a covered complex. It was covered parking, okay, for lack of better terms, and it was, they had solar panels on top, and that's part of what they're using to help heat their pool. I'm going to give you, this was not Flexera's presentation. Since then, I've engaged with Net Gain Energy Advisors. This was similar to what it looked like, much smaller, but it was pretty much about 15 parking spaces, and it looked pretty nice with this angled roof line. It was a covered parking area, but on the top was the energy panels, the solar panels, which was a pretty neat thing to look at. So I got information from them. Following up on that, this was another company that offered similar type of thing. The difference here with the Net Gain company, which is a little different, Tom and Miss Jenny had also mentioned the RECs for the energy credits. Okay? What happens with the energy credits is you need to, as a nonprofit, we're limited on how they help us. Okay? So it's nice to say, oh yeah, we get the energy credits, but if they're non-beneficial, the interesting part about the energy credits, though, it's a secondary market's been created for the sale of those. Okay? Which means there's a potential that we could engage, get the SRECs, and then they would be a marketable entity that we could sell as a way to offset our costs. Come in, we recently gave them our billing for the sports court pool to let them analyze the billing and look at what they might recommend to help offset the cost. The other thing was interesting with this particular company, they're a venture capitalist, company, which means they would potentially put a portion or all of the cost for the structure but we in turn turn over the SRACs to them. Just a different strategy, a lot of moving parts there, but it is something we're looking at. And when I went up to the Flexera at the refuge where they had the covered parking, it was actually, I was surprised how nice it looked. And something like that, and it was interesting because recently I had folks from the swimming group mention parking at the sports court pool and the lighting and those type of things. Well, this covered parking entity was very nice looking and had lighting. Maybe something to cover multiple things. Again, we have to look at what type of return on investment, obviously, to consider, but it's certainly worth looking into, and that's what we're exploring. We're waiting to hear back from them on their particular, how they think they may or may not be able to help us. Okay, so we are looking very heavily into it. Carrollton Lane, okay? Just want to make sure everyone's clear, it is not a two-way street yet. Okay, it is not a two-way street yet. I'm getting a lot of people with a lot of passion, once again, upset and angry. It's not a two-way street by design. It's not because you didn't vote to make it a two-way street. There are steps that have to be followed. Kerry Nelson engaged with the roads folks before he let the county roads individual. I also followed up with Mr. Tustin. I sent a letter to Mr. Tustin, Mr. Mason, Mr. Atkins, and I followed up again. I saw Mr. Tustin at the meeting a week and a half ago about the drainage, so I was able to say, hey, you got my letter? Oh, they're still working through their process. Understand something, the road down the far end does not appear to be wide enough to support the two-way traffic. So those that may be entering and ignoring the do not enter sign are actually wrong in doing it. Okay, they say, well, the board voted, we're going to do it. Not correct. It's a dangerous situation. Don't do it. I will remove the signage as soon as we get all of the dots connected so we don't have an issue. Okay? So there is still a stop. There is still, everything's as is until I get the final, whatever we may or may not need from the county. Yes, sir.
Well, that's, of course, been going back to your original big book that you gave us all, and the letter that was in it from the county attorney, which basically said that it was up to the Ocean Ponds Association and that, in fact, the easement agreement, or the turnover, that is to say, lease of easements, basically did not give the county the ability, other than regular county laws, to dictate what the streets in Ocean Ponds were. And I mean, that was the letter the legal letter, I think, that's the basis for certainly part of the basis for our vote. Now, so I don't know what dots we're talking about, I guess. I mean,
Well,
are they
here's
saying that is no longer true?
No, sir. I engage with our county officials who do have input on roads, the specifications of the roads. We don't have a roads planner on staff, so the roads engineer has to tell us if it's wide enough, not wide enough. If you all direct me to make it two-way and widen it or don't widen it, please take a vote one way or the other, and I'll go down that path, but that's on you. You guys said, let's make this happen. I'm trying to cautiously go through the steps to make sure we don't make a mistake when we do so. If you want to direct me because it's going too slow just to make it happen, by all means, tell me so, and I'll have it happen. I can probably do it in 2 or 3
Well,
weeks.
you know,
You'd have a lawsuit.
Not I, you would have the lawsuit.
Yeah.
I seriously
Going about
doubt
the right way.
we would have a lawsuit with the county that's told
No,
us.
No, no,
already.
Somebody gets injured in an
Resident,
accident,
yeah.
Dave.
Well, you're
Yeah.
talking about making the road appropriately safe.
Right.
And if that's the only thing, that is to say, you're waiting for the county do we have a plan that's in front of the county that says this is what we're going to do?
I sent them a letter with our request to make it a two-way street and offer us any recommendations or requirements they would have to make sure we comply with the county and state.
County and state law.
Yes, sir.
To include any changes
Okay.
necessary
Any
to the
changes
road.
necessary.
So we're not saying, may we do make this a two-way street? That's not on the table.
Let me,
No, I mean, okay, I think the answer is that.
let me clear it up.
Carrollton Lane again.
At our last meeting, it was suggested that we send a directive letter to the county telling them this is what we're doing. You then, being the establisher of the design specifications for roads in the county, need to tell us what this road needs to be. So, to Dave's point, we have in fact written the letter to the county saying, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
Now, you need to tell us what, we're not asking permission, we're doing it. What you now need to tell us is what are the specifications of that road, so that we're in compliance. That was the balancing act that was such a conflict before. One of the letters in the package says it's up to us what we do with the roads, but in the very same letter or some other letter, it says, but
We have the final say.
we have the final say as what the specifications are.
Remember the old Mother May I comment?
Right.
Yeah.
So, we have in fact written to them saying we're doing it, and you need to give us the specifications, and you've now tried at least 3 times,
Well, we're going
letters
through-
and your
we're going
conversations,
through
and that's
the
where we are. We're
process.
going through the process.
Oh, yeah, the problem is that they have to do something, which is always a problem.
Which is where we are.
Please,
Government in general.
if you all want to direct me otherwise, please do so.
I think what we'd like to know is whether or not they actually have to prepare formal specifications for a road. We have, how many, 70 miles of roads in Ocean Pines? Do we have specifications for each one of those streets?
Mr. Stevens, please just direct me on what you want done. I'm following what I think's the right
What I-
course of
what I-
action. If it's not the course the board desires,
You wanna
just
offer
tell
a
me to
motion,
do so,
What
and I'll move in a different direction.
what I thought is, that there is a general specification for roads in Ocean, and the same thing that all of our roads are built to, according to the county road. What we need to do is take an action that would widen the front of that and make it according to the county specifications.
Mr. Stevens, make the motion, vote it up. I'll
I
be
think I
happy to
already
do it.
have made the
No,
motion.
sir, you have not. You wanted to have it done.
I'm happy to let Bob, the general manager, continue to work with the county to resolve this so we can get it and then maybe move on.
Yes.
I'm not happy with that, but on the other hand, if the board is...
I'm
I
good
don't-
either way.
I don't care, we can keep it forever. It's not an urgent thing.
The specifications we have with regard to the roads, is it the width of the roads, or is it really the structure of the roads?
Both.
And how the,
both.
in the community?
It's both.
There's a county engineer
There's some
that
changes that
specs
have
out
to
the
be made to
roads.
accommodate traffic
Right.
for 2
I'm
ways.
assuming Frank will give me the information. So,
Why don't
and
you
that
report
was,
back to us?
what's that?
Report back to us next month how we're doing.
I have the
sorry.
last 2
Who
months,
will-
but we're not happy with it. So
Who
if you
will
want-
give us the information, Frank?
Frank, and he is the roads engineer for the county.
Okay.
So again, guy, if you want a different course of action, just direct me to do it. It'll be done. Relatively simple here. Are we good with where we are, or should I?
I'm good with where we are.
I'm good with where you are.
Okay. Okay, updates on the police department. Okay, great news. Some crime stats that just came out on major crime. Crime stats, Berlin was down, Fruitland was up, Ocean City was up, Ocean Pines was way down on the major crime stats. I'm pointing out the safety of the community, and I think what a great job our police force does.
I love percentages, Mr. General Manager, but I also like the numbers that they're based on.
Okay, that's how they're reported in the major crime report, is in stats.
Make a recommendation.
I mean,
The
I'd be happy to
FBI
make a copy of that report.
FBI.
I'll
It's
pick
done
it
in
up.
stats.
I'll pick it
Yeah,
up.
the
Okay.
numbers.
The county funding was approved. We received $400,000, we're approved for, and we recently received the $400,000 in support of police department, not unlike previous years. And we do have that money at this point. Lastly, we applied for, as you know, we've talked about doing grants, we applied for a regional communications grant. It was recently approved.
Yep.
What that allows us to do is communicate directly via our cars as well as our land-based operations here with all the county and other agencies that will be tied to it for real-time information. What that means is they haul in a bad guy, okay? They can immediately run the criminal check, and not only is it if they're tagged on the federal database, but if they're in any of the local databases as well, it all ties together. They instantly can tell if they've got someone that's really a bad person, someone wanted in Ocean City or elsewhere, This is part of tying all the local police agencies together. Now, the downside with that, and there's always two sides, we're still short about $100,000, and we're trying to get some pricing now to run the actual fiber optic line that's needed to carry the information from either 90, where the company is putting it in for the county, or from 589 out at the North Gate, there's a spot. The other option that we've looked at, and we're going to have to go back, we're trying to figure out where the county is with the main line going in, is to connect with the MediaCom fiber optic line, which is technically right behind our building. Very short run, but then the monthly charge is there's a lot of money for that fiber optic line.
Well, don't worry, they'll have a promotional rate for it.
How long will it last, Dan?
Just floating it out there.
One question, Bob, real quickly. The grant awarded for the Regional Communications Project came from whom?
That was a state.
Yeah, it
So the state-
came from the feds through the state.
And I will tell you,
We applied to the state.
And
They
Senator-
got it as a block grant from the
and
federal
we got
government.
a
a piece.
106 of it. And Senator Mathias actually assisted us with that.
Thank you.
Spoke directly with him, which we very much appreciate. Yes, sir.
Bob, did that new officer we added last year have anything to do with this grant?
She's writing the grants.
Yeah, I know
We hired a
that.
position last
Yeah.
year that had grant making.
That's actually a great thing.
I met her last week.
Point is, we spent some money to make some money.
Yes.
Well, that's not a bad
Imagine that.
thing.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Gosh.
I want to just take 1 second to tell everybody, just to keep this in mind. Our police department here in Ocean Pines is percentage-wise with the people that live here and the property crime and personal crime is within the top 8% in the United States of getting things done and in efficiency. We have one of the best in the country in our little department here, simply because of the procedures that have been followed step by step that Dave has done since he got here. And we're lucky to have them because they do a good job.
Okay. All right. Yacht Club, let's talk about real quick. Their new hours at the Yacht Club, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, 7 a.m. till 10 p.m. When I give that 8 p.m. and 10 p.m. number, they are kitchen hours. Okay, doesn't mean that we start closing at 8:30 or 9 o'clock when we're saying we're closing at 10. That kitchen will be available up until that time to prepare a meal. So we had hours posted all summer, and if someone were to come in and it was a half hour before closing time, they were limited on what they could order. I'm not sure why, but that was the practice we had. That's no longer the status. Some other things, we engaged with NFL Ticket, which has been already I say big, but a small success. We've had a lot of people real excited about it, and we had a pretty good showing this weekend. It was the first weekend we had it. Those that don't know what it is, we're able to dial into any game anywhere with the NFL. Pretty good package there. Somebody say something? The menu is included in the daily, we've included daily specials in the menu, and let me share this. Again, show and tell. You guys have a lot of
This
questions?
is new this week, Bob?
Yes.
So this is going to start, so I can get Saturday night.
You may be ordering lunch soon.
On your dime, sir.
Then later.
Okay, new menus. Inside, you'll notice there's a loose part, and it's the specials. We're really excited about it. We've had a lot of input, some folks, so we're going to try it. Again, every night we're going to try to have a special. The other thing that we're doing, which has been well received, I'm really surprised, pleasantly surprised at the breakfast being open, which basically meant we have one more staff person than we did, but he or she are coming in and they're cooking full breakfast. Those that have eaten there have been very pleased with it. It's very economical, and folks say, wait a minute, you're incurring additional costs, where that person that comes in early is also starting to prep earlier for the lunch. So they're doing the prep, instead of coming in 10, they're coming in earlier so they can do breakfast, but they're prepping for the lunch meals earlier. And then as we do these specials, potentially prepping for the dinner menus. Just means they won't work as late in the afternoon.
I was eating there I was having the new breakfast the other day. I was in there, and there were two people sitting in there, and they saw the breakfast come over to me. They were eating the muffins I didn't know if we could get breakfast. I said, you can now. Why don't you just put those in the back of the moment with breakfast with you?
I noticed the prime rib, all you can eat.
No, I'll be there Saturday night. There won't be anything left to take.
I think there's a condition that goes with that, is there
That's
not?
right. Can't take anything.
There is. And I know I'm going to get some pushback on it, but the fact of the matter, we have a business run. It's
No
all-
doggy bag.
All you can
Yeah.
eat, prime rib, okay, Saturday night. However, there's no take-home. We eat it while you're there. I can't feed you for the
Well,
next 2 days.
everybody does that.
You say everybody knows that. You
No,
might
no,
be
no, I
surprised.
said.
Yeah, of course,
everybody-
restaurants do
Every
that.
restaurant
Yeah,
does
yeah.
that.
Yeah, but you wait.
Yeah.
How long
Okay.
you been in Ocean Plains, Terry?
She hasn't been here very
No,
long.
Not very
I'm
long.
Okay, so we're excited. The new
Terry,
manager-
trust
We're
me.
special.
All right, the other
We
thing
need to
that I
specify.
want to make sure everyone has.
Well, I'm not saying you
a copy
don't.
of
Everybody-
is
every
in your-
restaurant does.
For those who did not already receive it,
Common
I know one person
You're right.
here did not get a formal newsletter, so I'm making sure that
I got it.
you have it here, Mr. Terry. I'm not going to say.
I got multiple, I don't need another one.
I have
All
multiple.
right, but inside there was the survey we recently sent out.
Right.
That survey is a way to engage. As you know, we're looking at some potential opportunities with the yacht club, and we decided to reach out to our residents. It was a very inexpensive insert we were able to put in, and we also have it online, and we're getting a lot of feedback. What was our last number? So about 300 total surveys back already, which we're pleased with. Yes, sir.
How many of our members have opted out of receiving this? Do we have any idea? We should, I guess, right? We gave people the option to no longer receive it in the mail. Get
Just online rather than mail to them.
Get it online instead. How many have opted?
Opted out. 20 opted out.
20
Most
opted
are
out?
Opting in.
Yeah, out of 8,000.
Out of 8,440? Okay, thank you.
That'll cut
Okay.
it down.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, but I hate to, I mean, but.
No,
Those who wanted to
I
eliminate.
I'm bad at tests, you know? Yeah, I mean,
Fair
multiple
enough.
choice. You know, how frequently do you dine out? Daily? Well, certainly not. Weekly?
You might be surprised.
Weekly?
I think you'd be surprised.
Well, I don't.
But you don't, but
Well, it's
you're
my-
filling for you.
It's my test.
Fill it
You need
out
help
and put it in
answer
the
some of the
box.
But weekly,
Yes, sir.
no, more than that. So I dine out, okay, 2-3 times a week, sometimes more, very rarely less. Okay, now which one do I fill out, the daily one or the weekly one?
Could we have a private counseling session after the meeting for Dave?
I want to know how
that.
that.
I will have instructional bubbles.
You could probably.
Are you? Yeah, good.
If you're 4 plus, it's daily. If you're 3 under, it's weekly.
What best fits you, closest to
Okay.
Yes.
Moving right along.
like closest to your age.
Somebody call Mary and ask her.
Yeah, give it to Mary.
All right, I'm going to keep moving.
Thank
Okay,
you.
yeah.
Keep going.
Please.
All right, golf. There was a lot of information requested of me last month of golf. Okay, what happened, what type of conditions, those type of things. So I took some time to put some reports together for you. Hey, you wanted it, you're getting it all today. Okay, we had adverse conditions impacting our golf course, okay? And again, folks say, oh no, what happens is why more this year than last year? We did have extreme heat this year, it was a hot summer. We had some untimely thunderstorms. Mid-Atlantic had that, a lot of courses suffered that. I'm not going to tell you they were the major impactors. However, I will tell you, the mechanical stressors on our course were a major impact. The insufficient root system, major impact, okay? And lastly, the amount of shade and airflow. I'm going to break down in more detail the mechanical and insufficient, but let me just cover the heat. When you get a thunderstorm in the middle of the day, it's wet, the heat hit, and it goes through real quick, and then the sun comes out, it's 99, 100, 98, whatever temperature. It starts to bake. It's not good to have that water setting on the course. It's not conducive to growth. It shocks the grasses. Again, I've become very smart on grasses on a golf course for a non-golfer.
You're an agronomist.
I'm an agronomist now. Okay. Mechanical stresses, though, I'm going to go through some to show you all which you may not be aware of some of the additional mechanicals, and the root system. Lastly, we have a very shaded golf course. 40 years ago, we had a much wider, more open golf course, and now that shade prevents some of the sunlight and airflow, which does deteriorate the course. Interesting thing, when Mr. Billy Casper came in, those who had the opportunity to meet with him, very nice man, what a nice experience it was for me to meet him. He actually, when first said, someone said, what do you think of the course? And if you were there with him, he said, too many trees. Why are there so many trees on the course? But and he said, I don't remember that many trees. And you think, well, this guy is more senior in age. How would he remember that? As the conversation went on when he did his open session, he talked about the holes he played here when he was here, to the detail, what his score was. Very sharp man, and a lot of fun to listen to. So he recognized the trees were an issue for the playability, but it's also creating airflow issues. Okay? Let's talk about some of the mechanical stresses. Okay? Burnt wire. This was something that happened where it shut down many of our 6 of our irrigation systems because we had a line that you can barely see it, but there's a splice right here. And it's shrink wrapped up this way. That's not the way it's supposed to be spliced. Okay? So when that burnt through, it shut those sprinklers off. Took over a week to identify that location. You see these are down, okay, impacted holes 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. Because of this one. Toro was in, Andre was in, everyone. They're trying to tone it out to find out where the where the breakdown was.
Yeah.
Okay? Some of you who are golfers remember that.
So this is basically a breakdown in a system that's been in there for a long time.
Yes, sir.
A long, long time.
Water line rupture. Pump house, we had a water line. It was bubbling up. The water was bubbling up. Okay, dug it down. We found right here, okay, the building is behind him. Okay, plastic pipe came out to these fittings. These fittings were plastic. The requirement for those fittings is mechanical or metal. Reason for that, the amount of water that gets pushed through there, okay, you want to have these metal mechanicals, which you see already reinstalled there, to help absorb that heavy pressure when that system kicks. In addition, they lay concrete. They don't actually, you can pour concrete in, behind them to hold it. A lot of times, when he's talking to Rusty, he said a lot of times they just throw a bag of Saccrete at where the line deadheads. And what it does is if there is a push, that's, once it's buried, forms as a barrier, it hardens up, it prevents an explosion out the other end. So that was another failure on the course that resulted in about a week of lost water.
That was also, I think, on the holes that that's been that way a long time.
And this was bubbling up. And, yes.
Yeah. So things are happening that you might expect to happen
on an older course. Yes, sir. But you asked for a report of where we are on golf.
Well, that's why we're here listening and answering questions.
Okay. This one was really interesting. You see that? I don't know if everyone can see it. It's between 9 and 10 inches. Okay? This is the irrigation line. Requirements supposed to be buried between 18 and 24 inches. When they were doing the deep tying, now this was very interesting, holes 1 through 6 were impacted by this, and hole 9. When they recognized that they needed to break down the top part of the soil to get some more flow, they used the deep tying equipment. They ruptured these lines.
Yeah.
They weren't buried deep enough. Again, creates an issue. You're rupturing your irrigation system. It's down, creates a lot of mechanical stress. The breakdown of mechanicals put stress on your course.
Now, just again, history. Holes 1 to 6 were the holes that were redone during the drainage project. Hole 9, however, wasn't. So, my logic tells me that perhaps hole 9 or holes 1 to 6 were buried at the same level as hole 9, the older hole was. In other words, they buried them wherever they used to be, exactly the same.
Not up to current spec.
Which may not be up to, well, I don't know what current specs are or whatever, but okay.
Just, again, I'm sharing the mechanical.
But Dave's point is, it's not just the new, it's the old as well.
Well, if they did and it's suggesting that they did the new as they did the old.
Which is the majority of the new ones were all
apparently not for the deep. We never had a deep.
The majority of the new ones, 1 through 6, were all had failures.
We never had a deep.
They weren't deep enough.
We never had a deep timing system before.
Okay.
It happens.
Those who remember, and I didn't get a pretty picture on it, but the pump failed, the pump to pull the water up that helps feed the irrigation system. So in the spring, there was very limited water, and they accomplished it, but it was very limited. It was based on the water table, based on the pond that they were drawing it from, but they could only water to a certain extent because it took almost a month to get that pump repaired. By the time, and if you all remember, we came in and discussed that. Just so you know, for mechanical failure. Okay, some other things when you're looking at the course, which were interesting. We talked about the deep timing. This was an attempt to apply the deep timing, okay, on number 2 fairway. About 2 inches here. Hits this hardened material, and the tines don't go deep enough.
It's like
Okay?
clay material.
It's compacted clay material, so
Yep.
instead of being able to tie down 6 to 7 inches, they could only go down as 2 inches. Create some hardship on the course. The number 3 fairway, okay, forward in this direction from where he's standing about 12 to 15 feet is the actual drain. This was several days after rainfall. Still hold, the ground content's still holding the water. Unable to either penetrate or make it to the drain because of the slope. Just, again, these are mechanical issues impacting the course. Greens, okay. I'm going to share with you a report on the greens. This report, okay, was accomplished by Hummel and Company, Inc. out of New York. Engaged with them to get some input on the conditions of our course. Top 3 inches of because greens where we had major failures. Top 3 inches of greens are the 4 things they looked at. Okay, the silt and clay amounts were within the USGA recommendations. Okay, we're talking about this top part of the green. Particle size distribution meets the guidelines. However, the infiltration rates, water draining through, are very low, creates poor drainage, and the aeration porosity rates are low. Again, negatively impacting drainage. That prior slide where you see them standing in water, there's a great example of it. Interesting when you go to the 5 to 8 inch depth, and this is all found in your report. Okay, the silt and clay amounts in the next set of matter actually does not meet the USGA guidelines for silt and clay, and the particle size does not meet. However, the infiltration does. Just interesting, it flip-flops based on the density of the compaction. Everybody see that? And it's in your reports. The numbers are in the report that you read at your leisure. What this meant, and this was according to Dr. Hummel, definitely would want to consider removing at least 3 inches of green. It's time to regrass greens when organic matter, that's in this section, okay, accumulate to a point that it plugs the surface, okay? And he believes that the greens are failing because of the lack of proper topsoil, or top 3 inches of our course. Okay? Now, just so everyone knows, again, I like to be thorough. Complaining, sample drawn yesterday. Okay? This is the equipment they used to draw that sample. You'll notice, just as an idea, you should have roots clear down through this system. There are no roots in this section. Okay? You see the material content. This is...
Where was that sample taken?
This one was off of, I have it written down. No, it's the, right near the practice surface.
3?
Yeah, near the, whatever the practice, 19.
One.
Oh, 19?
One, near one, the practice.
Yeah, no, probably not
Yeah, 1 or
19,
2,
that's
not
a new
19.
green.
Near one.
1, okay.
Yeah, okay. Now, I have one I'm more than welcome to open. It should be a little more, it was drawn at the same time, but it should be more compact.
We should be looking
It's up
at
to
this,
you.
the roots are not...
Yeah, there's,
You can see how
you
shallow...
can see, there's, the green on top looks great, okay? But it's limited
nothing in
at
there.
a
There's
nothing
maximum
there.
of that depth,
My front lawn's better.
okay?
like
So,
spray painted.
and that's what, this is the piece of equipment they use to send the sample. This unturns, and there's another sample. No, I won't. There's another sample in here. If no one believes that's a current sample, this is. Again, you just want it thorough, there's thorough. You want to look at it, please go through it.
Thought that was my gavel.
That, yeah. Okay? Everybody understand where the issue that arises there? We just don't have the root system to support it. And this is why we have failures on the golf course year after year. Some more so than others. Okay, we mask it through some of the efforts that we've been doing, but technically, if you want to know where the issue lies, our soil content just isn't at a level to support the golf course where we believe it should be. Okay, here's something that's just kind of amazing. When I'm telling you the golf course doesn't support the grasses, this was laid on 1 last year. Okay? You see these lines that you see right here, the straight lines, okay, that's the vertiquake machine. It drags behind, this element pierces down into the grass, it doesn't shake as it goes along. It's to loosen the soil content, okay? The deep tining is right here. The plugs, they go with another machine and they pull those plugs up, like the plug I showed you before that was only 2 inches, should be at least 6.
And that's what broke the pipes.
And that deep tining did. Now, what's really sad here is you can see, again, you've got about this much soil content, and there's an example of why, with what I'm passing around, we don't have any deep roots. This was from last year's sodding of that hole. It can't penetrate through this clay matter material. Hence where a lot of the problems come. So we mask it each and every year by laying sod over it. They're certainly trying they're very aggressive with the vertiquake and with the deep tining, but the results are not quite where we need them to be because, quite frankly, they're trying to grow it on poor materials. It's a fact of where it is. Okay, ask what our efforts were. Okay, so I've shown you the mechanical stresses. We talked a little bit about the environmental conditions. We've talked about the contents of the soil makeup throughout our course. This is what they've been working on, and it's been happening, some variation of this through the summer has occurred as they've been able to do it. But September, October, they've been seeding the mature fairways and deep tining and top dress, just so you know. They poke the holes. They use this material that is an organic material mixed with a sandy material. When they top dress, it falls down into the plugs that have been pulled up, falls in those holes, and offers a little looser system that should help with the absorption of the water. Okay? Aerate the rocks, seed the rocks. They put in the tall fest 2 and the A1 and A4 bluegrasses and bent grasses. The bent grass come up, the course is looking like there because bent grass grows well and poor at night, and you don't have the stress of the heat as well. The other thing that happens, just so everyone knows, I passed out that content of the roots. The goal would be to have a root system that's 12 inches in length. Okay, and that's what a lot of the courses in the area have, some of the newer courses. By having that throughout the summer, as the heat is, the environmental conditions, just keep hitting on that course, whether it's sun, whether it's heat, whether it's wet, whatever the conditions are, as it starts to wear on, that root system starts to shrink. Okay, as it starts to shrink, it puts more and more stress on that grass on the very top. Well, those courses that have the root system 8 to 12 inches can afford it because it shrinks a little bit throughout the summer. So by July and August at the top of the heat, they still have 6 to 8 inches, assuming they start at a 12-inch root system. Ours being 2 to 3 inches in length, by July or August, we're down, and there's an example, this much root. They never get a chance to grow deep enough. The most is at 2-inch contact. You saw Rusty's hand with one of the better ones was about 2 inches. The grasses can't handle the stress, and that includes mowers, all the stresses that go into that grass, the consistent mowing, the weather conditions, the golfing on it, and that's why the course just never comes. Again, it's a 40-year-old course. 40 years ago, it was a good course. It was open, it was airy. We had better conditions in the soil because the nutrients weren't removed. The interesting part on top of that is the top 3 inches are so compacted you can't get through it to get the roots to grow any further. The material there where you see the black and the 2 colors, that's the level of compaction that's identified where they think that's been the top dressing over the years, over 40 years of top dressing, that's built up to that point, and that dressing has been compacted as they do work on it. It just makes it a very, very compact surface. So, you want to know where we are with the golf, between the mechanical stresses and 40 years old, this is what's led us to where we are today. I won't finish reading through those, just, they're there. You'll start to see in November, yes, sir. The Bermuda, you will start to see some brown patches appearing starting in November on the course. It's not disease, that's Bermuda grass. It starts to die as the cold season comes. Bermuda
What
likes-
about the tree removal?
They are doing some minor tree removal now, just trying to open up some areas, some of the dead trees, the limbs hanging over. They're trying to do a project that takes that in consideration. It's not a major project, but they're doing it as they can.
Selective pruning.
Selective pruning, and they're doing the best they
That's what
can.
Harlan did 6 and 7 years ago to try to clear that out and cut those trees up. We've got about 30% more turf area, but it has to be done all the time.
Has to be consistently taken care of. Okay, everybody understand where we are?
Yeah, the only interesting thing about this course from that perspective is that the Bermuda that's left is what the course was when it was built. Somebody decided years ago that they liked bent grass and they didn't like Bermuda because it gets brown in the fall.
Yeah, the brown grass, I mean, that's a decision.
Eagle's Landing gets brown every winter. I mean,
It
that's
gets,
what you
it gets
got.
brittle and it gets brown.
That was a bad decision.
It's not pretty.
That was
I can't
horrible.
second guess those. I can only tell you
Well,
guys.
if I can just,
Yes, sir.
You weren't involved in that, were you?
because I need to explain this a
You weren't
little
involved in that, were you?
bit simpler. I think what they're
It's
saying
been a while, but
is
it hasn't been
that,
that long.
that the basic course design, I mean, how it was planted, is unable to handle abnormal stress, because we know, for an example, that over the last 3 years, right up through early July of this year, the course was in really good shape. It was bad a few years before, but on the other hand, there was a huge tree removal, during the program, which showed almost, along with other things, an immediate
Yes.
improvement. So, in other words, the problem is, our course can look good a lot of the times, and many years in a row, but when you hit a year like this past year, it's going to look bad, period,
Yes,
and
sir.
there's nothing to do about it.
Yeah, mechanical stresses coupled
Yeah.
with, I mean, there were a lot of
And
issues.
anecdotally, I'm a 1978, since 1978 member. There have been other times in the past when the course has gone down, and where other courses in the area were doing well. I mean, and I remember the members complaining exactly the same way. Hey, how come I can go over to Bay Tree or Bay,
Newer
wherever?
courses haven't had the 40 years to build up, and 40 years ago,
Yeah.
great course. Over years, it just has built this up. Yes, sir.
Bob, at the last Golf Members Council meeting, Damien was there giving them an update.
Yes, sir.
Not as thorough as this, obviously, but in response to one of the questions, he indicated the USGA has periodically rendered reports on the condition of our golf course, and the last one having been several years ago, and they asked what was in it. He said basically it's the same findings each time the USGA comes in and does an evaluation of our course. The findings have not varied over the years in terms of their assessment of what the problems are. So USGA, not just this Dr. So-and-so.
Okay, so you guys asked for where we are with it. I want to make sure I give you as thorough a report as I could.
Thank you, Bob.
Okay, despite all that, let me give you some positives that come out of this. Okay, here are some comparisons number-wise. Again, rounds, broke it down to 2010, give last year's comparison moving forward to this year's comparison. 2011 rounds, okay, through May, June, and July, before we really had the course go way off kilter, were 14,264 compared to last year's numbers of 11,568, which means we had an increase of almost 2,700 rounds in that 3-month period. I think it's a good testament of the Billy Casper strategy that they've employed. August and September, obviously with the stresses on the course, and we had a lot of cancellations, and one thing that I will give them credit, I want to make sure everyone understands, we talked about one of the things that they engaged with, folks that had booked to come down and play at our course, either in groups or individuals, got personal phone calls to say, course is in really bad shape, okay? You may want to reconsider, may we help you choose another course? People very much appreciate that. It was a very aggressive tactic to take. The truth of the matter, I had folks come down, played on the course, and been very upset, even at this kind of
wouldn't
rate.
be back.
Would have been far worse than this. We've already had people saying, well, we'll be back next year. So that was a very proactive stance to take.
I talked to somebody from works at River Run, and they appreciate the business that's been referred to them by Ocean Pines.
Okay, now, rounds were up.
But it's the right thing to do.
However, August and September, we actually took a beating on it. Rounds started to decline based on the budget, based on where we had hoped they'd be. However, we're still up almost 2,000 rounds, even with the last 2 months of conditions. The testament that had the course stayed in much better shape, I think that trend upward would have been a lot more dramatic.
Bob, a tough question for you.
Yes, sir.
Can you distinguish non-member?
Yes?
In other words, when I say distinguish non-member, what I mean is non-member Ocean Pines
Pines.
resident
Yeah.
versus non-member,
Outside.
non-Ocean Pines
Absolutely,
resident,
I
outside
can't
play.
today, but I combine
You do
those.
have
Yes,
outside
sir.
play statistics.
Yes, sir.
And I'm assuming that number, my assumption would be
It was up.
under the non-member rounds, that's the largest component.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
And it's up.
Yes, sir. Okay. More importantly, okay, we have our round, so let's talk about our numbers. May, June, and July, we were ahead of last year's numbers by $108,000. Just from a budgetary standpoint, what the last year for those 3 months versus this year for those 3 months, what the budget difference was, $108,000. Okay? Actual difference. And you see net revenue, I use the term net revenue, I included everything here. Then August and September, we had to slide because of the conditions. End result, we're still approximately $61,000 above last year's numbers on the golf course. In revenues, net revenues.
And Bob, October obviously will be a continuation of the negative trend.
Yes, sir. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Bob?
Yes.
Okay, that's including Terrence Grill too, right?
Yes, sir, it is.
All right, yeah. I'm not seeing the same thing out of this report, I guess, but.
Okay, the numbers that are up on the board, here's a breakdown just to give you greater detail where they came from. And again, I'm not going to go over all of them, but if you look at May 2011 to May 2010, the third, or actually technically fourth column shows dip or the difference, 43,000 for that month. June, 58,000, again to the positive, and this is separating those numbers. Okay. 32, if you go to the next level, which is the one that I used, okay, for the next, after the cost of merchandise and everything, 33, 45, 30. 33, 45, 30 gives you the 108. So that just gives you a better detail of what's up there, of how we accumulated those numbers. Okay?
Great.
Were you down yet?
Almost, because
Working on it.
I'm just making sure, I asked this question a lot earlier about
Yes, sir.
golf, that this reflects the combination of golf
Yes,
maintenance
sir.
and operating.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Right down the bottom.
Does it include Casper's fee, by the way?
And Terrence Gray and Casper's.
All fees.
The answer is yes.
All fees. Thank you.
It's $5,500 a month.
We've got green fees, cars, driving, member dues, merchandise.
Couldn't pay me to
and
run that.
miscellaneous, which includes all of it.
Actual.
Okay? All right. We talked about some, yes, sir.
Yeah, I guess. I have to point it out, though. I mean, I'm looking at their expenses, too, which are only a couple $1,000s more through September than they were last year. I'm sorry, than the budget, and probably another 30,000 or, but I guess my point is that they've been doing a tremendous amount of work. I mean,
Yeah.
one would expect that the maintenance expenses would go
Yes,
up.
sir.
But all of that is part of no capital is being spent. Is that a fact? That's a fact. That's a question I'm
With
asking.
the exception of the pump.
The pump, Yeah.
They would buy the mower early in the season.
Yeah, they think, we had capital expenses, yeah, that were on.
I don't want to give a wrong answer.
But
We have
no,
had some
but
capital.
when you're looking at what, given the impact and the response, we're not spending capital on that.
Well, the sod was the capital, right? Yeah, the sod.
We had some
Yeah, one acre.
budgeted to either regrass or whatever, some teas and greens, so, in the budget for this year. And I think instead they're trying to recover.
Oh, so there are capital expenses coming out of the sod and capital expenditures.
So far, I've got about 4,000.
Yeah,
Don't forget, two-thirds of the sod expense will be incurred in this month. So we're only looking at results through September.
Yes.
Yeah.
Two-thirds of the capital cost, of the green cost, the sod, will be in October. It's about $8,000 of green, $5,500 of which is the side cost, and then there's some other costs.
$8,000 per green,
Yeah,
and how many greens?
well, 3,
Train. Okay.
okay? But that, you haven't seen it yet, it's not reflected here because of,
Yeah.
and it's capital, so anyway, yeah.
Okay.
Okay? Now,
Dan,
Just
Oh, I'm sorry,
one
Dan.
one
Yes, sir.
observation that you always like to run away and not make this one, but you should. And that's down on the bottom, it says net operating. And over to the right, it says year-to-date 2011. And on my sheet, that's a positive $33,500.
yes, sir.
Correct.
That is correct.
So we're not losing money on the golf course, we're making money.
Yeah, but
We're not,
We don't make a lot in December.
well, yeah, but means we're not finished with the year by any means. But at this point, year-to-date, we're making money.
Right,
Yeah.
right, right.
Thank you.
yeah, we make money in everything at this point.
Okay, now, moving forward, because this is, and Mr. Stevens pointed out, being here since 76 or 78, sir, the differences, golfing here, we had this every couple of years based on some of these conditions. I was asked, okay, tell us what it's, where we are. Next thing would be, what type of solution can we offer? So again, I started putting down some facts, trying to figure out what options we might have, instead of doing patchwork, instead of doing triage to the course every couple of years, to actually cure it. Okay, to cure it means capital expense. If we're looking at a long-term approach to make the improvements to cure the issue, not cover it, not patch it, not sod it, to actually make the improvements to correct the conditions, we need to begin a very aggressive tree removal program. And that's not just cutting a few trees every couple of years. We need to get back to the original condition and take out a lot of the over 40 years of growing. There's a lot of trees on the course. I know that's not all friendly to a lot of people, but to improve the course conditions, if you want it right, that will need to be taken into consideration. Second thing would be continue, I put restart, because it's really a continuation of the drainage project. It's something that was budgeted. I asked for this year to have a half step back to take a look at it to see if it was the right thing. Billy Casper Golf believes, and their management team believes, they had worked with McDonald in the past, those who did the work, they've evaluated where we are, and they felt the drainage project was the proper way when they evaluated it to make improvements not only to the course, but the 1,400 homes around it. It gets that water from stagnating and staying. The biggest condition, though, 11, 12, and 13. 11 is where it crosses over, the parkway to pump out or to roll out. That's where the biggest challenge comes in with backing up the water.
Yeah, that's because that's tidal.
Well, just
One of
the issues. The piping's not of the right amount, and the flow's not. 11 and 12 are in some areas are almost like basins and hold the water to the last point. So
Well, one of the things I've been waiting to hear, and this is a good start on the drainage project.
Yes, sir.
Is, again, a report from Billy Casper on how they would have, you're saying we're going to restart it. That's good news. I mean, which indicates that our drainage project has been going in the right direction. And so I guess I'd like to hear a little more detail as we move forward and before the next budget process from Billy Casper about what specifically they would do. I would be surprised.
If you'd like to hear it, I'll tell you in a few minutes. If you want to wait till next month, I will, but I have it.
Okay, all right.
Okay?
I don't see it here.
Okay, so restart the drainage project.
Yeah.
And lastly, rebuild the greens. 3-inch compaction, you're not having the penetration. We're going to continue to have these reoccurring issues year after year. Did a year of great conditions, may get by that year, but the next year we run into this. This is a reoccurring issue. So,
What we're doing right now, for example, on 18, is that's not rebuilding, it's simply resodding the greens.
yes, sir. That's correct.
So when you say rebuild, we're talking about taking a couple of feet off the green and...
I'll go a step further.
What was done was 18 has now been done to 2 other holes.
No, I'm aware of that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I do
It's a short-term solution.
I do occasionally get to go out and play.
And the,
Okay. Okay, now, again, we're doing short-term triage. Mr. Stevens asked last month, to take a look at, I'm sorry for the print, it's what they sent me. I asked Casper, okay, I met with Billy Casper folks several times up to that point. I also met with the McDonald team who had done the work for us before, and I collectively met with them to figure out what would be the next steps if we wanted to have some more lasting impact and not just beautification. Okay, if you notice, projected cost summary. Engineering, the recommendation is to do holes 11, 12, and 13, doing them concurrently for several reasons. A is to enhance that work, the water flow, piping across the parkway out, expanding the pond, okay, that holds the water 12, and it ratchets around to 13 a little bit. There are the engineering costs, the permitting costs, the mapping costs, the design costs, okay? And complete draining project for holes 11, 12, and 13. Also notice, I asked them in doing that, since they're going to have their equipment in doing that, what would it cost us to do all 18 holes to redo the greens in their entirety instead of one at a time or piecemeal? You see that figure? I'll get to it. I need them to have time to catch up. Okay, everybody see that? Drainage projects. And again, for those that want a little more detail, the pages following give it broken down in more detail in slightly larger print. Okay, 11, 12, and 13, complete the drainage project, inclusive of all permitting, $762,512.50. $762,512.50. If we would like to also consider doing the greens, the cost would be $868,906 for the green work. Total of the two is $1,740,419 in total. So almost 1.7 million, 1.74. Okay? Now, I realize this is a big number. I realize that it comes, and you kind of go, oof, are we really willing to do it? Don't know, but when I'm asked to look at the project, I'm asked to look at the conditions and then evaluate, here's the truth of the matter. Soil won't hold it, the course is 40 years old, needs to have a major look at it, and are we willing to make that type of investment? Not my decision, but here are the facts that surround it. Now, could we get other estimates from other than McDonald for this work? Absolutely.
yeah, we would hope.
Yeah, but we're going through that process today until you all have a chance to see it, digest it, and say, hey, it's something we're interested in, or not. Certainly begs the opportunity for you all to review it and think about it.
I see the schedule, and of course, they're saying, hey, let's go right on it and do it
Correct.
right now.
They reduced the cost if we could do the entire project at one time.
And start immediately,
Started, yes, sir.
which is an out-of-budget expenditure of, well, I mean, anything could happen, Tom. 1.7,
Again,
it's a
I was
little
asked
hard
where
to...
the issues were, what the
Yeah.
drainage project,
Maybe there's a creative
evaluated.
solution looming somewhere.
Well, who knows?
Now, if I can be so bold as to give you one potential solution for the green project, would you like to explore that, or are we long-winded already?
No, let's hear it.
Yeah, we'll hear it when we're here.
Okay? Using rough numbers, I'm going to use my board on this end of the building. Just some rough numbers, guys. Again, you know, please understand when I use the term guys, this one, I don't mean, I'm just
You're
thinking about
fine.
it. I use that.
You are fine.
Other way.
I take offense to it.
You're one of the guys.
I'd like to be one of the
One of the
guys.
guys.
Knowing that this wasn't going to be well received from a community standpoint, who also has a big pill to swallow when it comes to golf. Okay? Some of the positives we look at is if you look at the budget, you look at the numbers from the rounds and the golf, Casper has come in and started doing the things that we would have expected them to do. I would argue that if the mechanical conditions weren't as such as they are, to include the conditions of the course, our numbers would have been even higher on the rounds and the dollar amount. Okay, they're doing the management side of it, and May, June, and July reflect that we, at least in my opinion, we were hoping for. Okay? Moving forward, we have a big pill to swallow to figure out what we might be able to do. As Mr. Gomsack always laughs at me, I'm pretty creative with a lot of approaches. I'll give you an approach that may bridge some of the gap for the green repairs. Instead of going out and doing a special assessment or going out and doing borrowing for that money as a holistic $868,000, what type of strategy could we develop that would have to be a benefit to the golf course as well as not bear the burden on our entire membership, i.e. increase in assessment? If you sit back and you look at it, you start thinking about it. Our golf course, if you, as a member, this is dry erase, right? Okay. As a member, okay, if you join our course, rough numbers, it's $1,200 a year to golf. Okay? If you get the cart package, it's approximately $1,200. Please understand, I absolutely understand there are some variations to this. These are just giving you some broad numbers. Okay, so $2,400. Okay, if you include the locker room, if you include the locker room, the driving range, approximate numbers, okay, and bag storage, okay, you add these numbers up, okay, so the 150, 250, so close to $2,700 is where my number comes in when I get the real numbers. Between $2,700 and $2,800. Okay, all in, driving range,
Single golf.
Single golf. Okay, that's a roundabout number. Can everybody agree that's about where it is as a single golfer buying everything? Right, you shake your head. Are we right on that one? Pretty close.
I don't know, I fish, so I don't know.
Oh, well, let me see. Trust me, it's a close number.
You can win a lot more fishing than you can playing golf.
Okay, so if I take that number and I say, okay, that's what it costs a member, single member to play for that year. How do I give them a benefit and raise some money to do a major project that improves the course quickly? I looked at some options, came up with a lifetime membership option. Okay, anyone that's moved from any other area, moved here, that's played golf for any country, any significant country club, not a public course, but a country club, something of one of the larger courses, knows that you pay anywhere from investment, you have to pay a one-time fee up front, then you have X amount of money to play, or you have to spend X amount at the country club. All those variations. So you start thinking about that and look, okay, I need to raise capital of somewhere around $800,000 to $860,000 or $868,000. Okay? Looking at my current cost, I sit there and think about, what's a good option? What's a way to do it? Why not offer a lifetime membership to our golfers, to our members that already pay anyway? Limited lifetime membership to 40 golfers. One time only. okay? At an expense, $25K. Big number, okay? Consider this. If you golf, and it's closer to $2,800, I have 27 because I use that math, it's close to 28 all in. Between years 7 and 8, you've paid, if you paid each year that amount, you've front-loaded, okay? And that's including inflation. You front-loaded your golf option. My first number I did was at $20K, and it was 7.2 years you recoup your investment. What that would mean for a person that bought into a lifetime membership is somewhere between years 7 and 8. And now that at the 25K is closer to 8, you now have golf for free for life at the Ocean Pines Golf and Country Club at the current rates. Follow me on that? What you're asking is the golfers potentially, and guys, please understand, I'm not saying this is the only solution. I just got all these numbers, all these quotes out, I'm sitting there going, oh, holy smokes, how do I present this without giving at least some way of capturing this? Now, you ask, well, what good is it for a member, a lifetime member? Well, between years 7 and 8, okay, your cost becomes negligible. The rest of your life you get to golf. Well, we have aging membership. Understand, it doesn't work for everybody. I mean, that's why I limited to 40 people, okay? The $25,000 investment is not unheard of in the golf community. It's just unheard of here. If you're coming from across the bridge at any of the major golf courses, you'll have a one-time investment initiation fee and then your monthly, okay? So we really, at the $2,400 or $2,800 a year, are pretty economical for golf. Well, 300 to 280 members right now, who do you think would be willing, and I've already talked to 5 that have expressed some interest individually that said, yeah, I might consider that. Benefit to them, okay, they stroke the check up front. Again, you have to have the financial wherewithal to be willing to do it. But if you stroke the check up front, okay, you're paying a one-time fee, you get golf, regardless of what our fees become in the future. And you think about it, if we redo the greens, we redo the golf course, we take the three-pronged approach, we open up the fairways again, we redo the course, okay, we're going to get more play, more opportunity. Hence, at some point, we end up being a premier course again. We have the opportunity to increase our costs. Well, they're locking in what their costs are up front for their membership, okay? Secondly, to the broader spectrum of the entire community, it shows the willingness to invest back into the activity that they are passionate about. Now, you can't be so naive to say they're so passionate to stroke a check themselves, but truth of the matter is, at year 8, they've got a great deal. That's why I can't do it for everybody, or I can't lower the number. You know, if you start backing in the numbers, 10 grand, 15 grand, 20 grand, I really don't want to offer numbers at that low amount and offer 80 or 100 memberships because, quite frankly, it dilutes it. The advantages are no longer there, and we start losing money 6, 7 years out for a life. Just doesn't make sense. So by making it at that, now if you think about it, just real quick with the numbers, at 25 grand, 40, anybody do that math?
$1 million.
Yeah, we got it.
Okay? Yeah. Just rough numbers. And again, I'm spitballing, I'm throwing it out there as an option to help offset some of these costs. You've got $1.7 million to accomplish something real special, okay? They could do this potentially, okay, by the May-June timeframe and be up and running for next season.
And you're losing $120,000 in operational revenues for the next forever.
Don't fix it.
I mean, you're not getting that money.
Correct, you're not getting that money if you don't.
I mean, so what you're doing is you're getting a big upfront payment, which pays one thing, but on the other hand, you're losing $120,000 in golf revenues or thereabouts each year for
If you don't do anything.
for the lifetime of those people.
We could run off
this is too complicated.
into 5 o'clock this afternoon just on this topic. I want everybody to take these numbers. Bob, thank you very much, especially some of the creativity. I know that's not fully baked yet, but that's a good thought. We are clearly going to have a special session to discuss the situation of what we do with that. And Unless there's no more questions for Bob, we'll move on to the next.
Just one.
Yeah.
Would you consider opening those 40 to people who are non-members and perhaps even non-residents right now?
Again, I...
Is there any reason why we shouldn't?
Could be. Could very well be.
Potential
We'll get
opportunity.
40 people.
Yep. We don't, it's not totally baked yet.
I threw an idea out of a way to capture, yeah, so, yeah, we could kick
We'll get
that.
40 people if we
I
get out
think
of
we
here.
would.
But I don't
Okay.
think it'll make us any.
Bob, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Very thorough, very long.
Ask me more for next month.
Speaking of long,
We gave him a lot to
Mr.
come back
President.
to us
We
with.
did.
Hey, Tom, I am going to have, I have a 1 o'clock doctor's appointment that I can't
Okay,
miss. so-
I tell you what, here's my thought on this. What I would like to do, because we've been here quite a while, I do want to do the public comments, media questions. My question is, can we reconvene next week on the budget guidance and then move down to the, can we set a time next week for that?
I would like to move that we do that, because I,
Yeah, and I understand your situation. I have a plane to catch myself in Baltimore at some point.
yeah.
No, why don't we just approve it right now?
Well, I'm looking on the calendar because everybody.
Yeah, well, why don't we?
Any chance we could do it next week later in the day?
Well, we have a situation where you want, late, that's fine. I don't
Well,
want to-
my work is busier in
I
the
understand.
morning. I mean, I know you can't,
No, it doesn't matter to me if I'm on nights on there. It's up
we
to you.
could,
How about Tuesday, like around 5:30?
That later in the day?
That'll take us into the
that right?
executive council, but
it could be a little bit earlier if you want.
we can do early.
Oh, yeah.
Can we-
How about any time after 3?
Oh, can we
I
do
just-
4 o'clock? then?
Yeah, I just need to
4 o'clock
get
morning?
some of that day in.
Next Tuesday.
So
Does that work?
and this is a special
Let me
meeting
make
to
sure, wait a minute.
discuss,
Or is it a continuation of this meeting?
I mean, we're going to suspend, we're simply going to, we're going to postpone the second half of this meeting
Yeah.
until Tuesday at 4 PM.
Aquatics
That's what we're
meets-
saying.
That's what I'm saying.
So the motion is that we would move to suspend old business, new business, as listed on this agenda until Tuesday at 4 PM next
Right.
week.
But we would take public comment and media
I
questions.
said old business and new business.
Aquatics meets next Tuesday at 4, just so you know.
Oh, you'll
Well,
have to mention that. It would be-
ARC
I'm just
met
letting you know.
today.
so moved, Mr. President.
May I respectfully ask to cover the two CPI very quickly?
Oh, we have to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Not wait till next week?
All right, so we in essence are not going to terminate this meeting, we're going to adjourn it.
We're going to adjourn it and then reconvene.
All right, but I do want to move to public comment and media questions, and then we'll do the CPI. And then we will
Okay.
adjourn until 4 o'clock next Tuesday.
Good idea.
Fair enough. Public comment.
Your name, sir?
I keep my remarks brief.
Your name, sir?
Name and address.
Jack Levering, 6th Weekly Willie Court.
Just for the record.
Dog Park Chairman. I'd like to thank the board and Bob Thompson and the staff for all the support you've given us. The committee's working very hard. We're making progress, as we discussed earlier in the meeting, and we're having many projects. We are earning $1 at a time, getting there slowly but surely. But we do want to thank the board and the staff for all the good cooperation. We just had an activity this past week, a dog walk around the pond, very successful. A lot of folks came out, had a lot of fun, very orderly, no dog aggressiveness, no dog waste left, and we made over $2,000.
Great.
I thought it was a very successful project, we're very pleased. Upcoming at a dog show in Salisbury, we have representation there at the AKC Registered Show. We're going to represent our project and try to make $1 or $2 there. November the 12th, we're going to have a little dog show out here at the Pavilion. Just a fun dog show where it's going to be little categories, largest, cutest, and give some blue ribbons there, and make a money-raising activity also. December the 2nd, 3rd, we have a little Santa Claus with picture or owner. We can take some pictures and hope that be also a good one. So, we're still accepting donations, and they are coming in slowly, but we thank you all for your support. The committee's working hard. Thank you.
Thanks, Jack.
name is Brian Roberts. I'm at 3 Bird Hill Drive, and I'm also the chairperson of the Budget and Finance Committee. And I'd like to thank you guys for allowing me to speak today. Wanted to touch on a couple things. One, I know you guys have talked about the delinquent accounts, which was partly brought up by our committee, and I think there were some other questions in regards to that, which I think I emailed you this past week. Thank you for actually addressing this. I think it's relevant information. You know, we have over $805,000 of delinquent assessments as of right now. So I think a portion of that is over 1 year, but we have over 5 months worth, a significant portion. So that's a very important number to our committee. And I think, you know, we had some dialogue with management that had some information that actually gave us some numbers that were hard to find. So thank you for bringing some of that information here today. In addition to that, one of the things that concerns me, I think I have 4 members of my committee here, which I'm thankful that they're here with me, is that there was no projections in this report. And that really concerns me because I don't understand how you can manage the operations if you're not going to plan out where you're projecting, especially with things like the yacht club and also the aquatics. You know, those 2 areas have significant overruns in payroll costs. And I think, you know, having projections in those 2 areas specifically would be very helpful to our committee and I think to the board. So I would hope that you could you know, make that recommendation to try to get some projections for the next meeting, relevant projections, because as you see I sent an email to everyone yesterday, you know, from a budget guidance standpoint, we did have a few areas that we think that are important. One being that we want to see relevant, you know, ground-up approach type of budgeting. I think that's important to have, you know, from the ground up. And I know we have some areas we're going to sit down. I'm going to sit down with Bob and Tom and actually go through some of those things and try to help things out. Another area I think, you know, to touch on that ground-up approach is look at the payroll, which is the largest, you know, the largest expenditure that on the operating side that we have. Payroll, if you look at right now, is overrun in a number of areas, and it looks like in, you know, the administration and management department, I think there's, you know, there's I guess some areas I guess for that's making up for that operating for the payroll side of things. So you know, we'll have to keep us in line with the budget, but we're obviously missing out on some opportunities that could have been out there. In addition to that, I'd just like to talk about the yacht club. Our committee, from a budget guidance standpoint, we've looked over these numbers pretty hard, and we've looked at the fact that you guys, you know, allowed there was $120,000 or about $100,000, but when you look at the numbers, it might even be closer to $130,000 over the last 12 months. That in capital expenditures, where are we going with that? What do we get for that, you know, $120,000 on top of what you're seeing in these reports as what has been spent? And those initiatives, I think, for those capital expenditures, we're hopefully related to not just this year, but hopefully from a long run standpoint. So you guys I want you guys to really think about when you're looking at the budgets in the future, you know, for every dollar that we're spending in capital expenditures, what is our return on investment for those dollars? You know, and I want management, you know, I would hope you'd have, you know, put that in touch with management when they're putting their budget guidance together. You know, roads, it sounds like there's going to be a new road plan. We're under the impression, I think, last year that there was already a plan that was just going to be postponed. So I'm kind of concerned that there's going to be some additional cost actually in actually reconfiguring this plan that was already out there. And I understand that there's always variables at play. But do we really need to spend the extra additional money? You know, that's something that you could maybe possibly address. And then this golf course issue. I think it's great that Casper is definitely, you know, doing a great job from an operations standpoint. And from our own standpoint, investing $1.7 or $800,000 on top of the money that we've already spent in drainage, we have to look at, and I guess the board has to look at from a legal issue, is does that require a referendum? I mean, we've spent a ton of money so far on the golf course and there's been no referendum. You know, at what point do we need a referendum for that? So I think those are the major issues that I have.
Thank you, Brian. Now, let me just clear out one thing when it comes to the road thing, Brian. So, and the difference, as I understand it, is that, and Dave pointed it out earlier, that the original road plan was based on the amount of money we were getting, as opposed to what roads necessarily needed to be repaired. So you need to go do that assessment now so that you only spend exactly what you need to spend. But, you know, in all fairness, I think that's, you just can't keep waiting for the money to come back, and I know you agree with that. But
That's not true.
that's not true.
The plan was based on what resurface the roads.
Okay.
It wasn't a function of trying to fit it into a... And I'm pointing this out last meeting. The plan, a plan, has been an example program. We're not talking about potholes here. We're talking about resurfacing, grinding down to a certain level. That plan was tailored to accommodate the long-term of our roads. The money was a secondary issue. So I think Dave made the comment. To do it one way or the other, whether we have state funding or not, so.
Okay, because you're in agreement with each other.
Yeah, we're
He's saying the same thing, the engineering work's already been done.
No, I just didn't want it to leave the table with the thought that we structured a plan long-term in the community's interest based on a limited number of dollars, and we only did what those dollars would pay for. Because if we don't get enough dollars from this source, we got to get the dollars from other. We got to do the work, right?
All right.
Joe Reynolds, 84 Watertown Road. First item is, I'm wondering why the chairman of the Budget and Finance Committee has to come to a board meeting and make public comments as opposed to being on the agenda.
I can explain that. There were missed emails while I was on vacation, which would have put him on the agenda to be sitting at the table. We missed each other, the emails did not get read, that's why he wasn't sitting at the table. No slight intended.
It still could have happened, but anyway. Regarding the changing the I spoke personally to Doug Block from the county attorney that he told me that the county sets the regulations on the road, speed limits, the stop signs, the one way. He added, however, that if the Ocean Pines Association Board of Directors asked for something, it was like a 99.99% reality that the county commissioners would approve it. So Dave Stevens, to answer your question as far as what my conversation with Mr. Bloxham is, that the county has to approve the change from whatever it is now to a two-way street, or from a traffic regulation standpoint, aside from anything related to the structure of the road. Next item. How much did the NFL season cost to install, if anything, for installation? What is the monthly fee that we're paying for a business NFL ticket?
Who's that? NFL ticket
For a couple grand, 2,000 for the package.
for the season?
For a business NFL, it's 2,000.
But we also have annual, that's part of the DirecTV package holistically. But we bought that.
You added that in.
Yeah, we went to DirecTV for MediaCom. The cost for the NFL package was $2,000
Per year.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Kind of full, from my perspective, it's becoming even more of a money pit than most people anticipate.
So do I.
Committee tears down the year, talking about putting solar panels. If somebody were to write a novel about this, it would be unbelievable. I mean, it covered coal to become one of the biggest fiascos in energy finance, and we're not short on it. With regard to refusing to take a step that it has the authority to do in the yard and in the articles of incorporation. And that
pay their assessment up to date, publish their names when they're 30 days overdue. So a year, the potential expenditure of $5 million or more some years back. If you did it yearly to avoid a referendum, of course. But I'm beginning to wonder how much of that money, maybe $2-3 million, I have no idea how much we spent to date. I'm beginning to wonder how much of that was wasted. Now we're talking about rebuilding the entire court. 1.7 million or whatever it is. And my final comment, and I said this now, the long presentation. In my view, the Board of Directors should be providing this information in advance and have an policy.
Question? Okay. We will go.
Just to, to CPI. Followed up on again this morning. Just to one's trash, to things laying on the side.
The 7 Magnolia you're referring to?
No, sir, 5 Holly.
5 Holly, okay.
Been asked, letters been asked to have the attorney get involved and start the attorney's process to get it corrected.
I'll move that we authorize turning it over to the attorney for action.
Second.
We still had a quorum to listen to this. So
That's okay. That's
All those
quite
in
fine.
favor?
I've read them.
It's an attachment.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the second one would be the trailer. Do the same thing, take the next step, which is the attorney's.
I move that we take the next step.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
I will, for the record, note that in both instances, they're delinquent in their dues, one for the past 3 years and one for the past year. Continues.
Well, it's
Tom, do you want to make any?
Time to go.
We adjourn the meeting today?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Tuesday at 4?
Suspend the meeting, right?
Yeah, the meeting is...
No, we